Yo, what is up, guys? This is Damage Per Second Podcast, episode 131. And as you can see, the new layout, OBS didn't want to recognize any of my settings or any of my assets. So yeah, we're on StreamYards now. But it's been a long time. Definitely looking forward to the conversation today that we're going to have with the homies. As you can see, we got the illustrious panel. Every member of BRAP is here, with the exception of the man that actually runs the show. And he'll probably want to jump in here at some point too, because he's going to probably have something to say if he's in the chat. But first, I want to welcome the man, the myth, the legend, the man of many slaps.
We're at max capacity, Forte. We can't have any extra people.
I got you. I'll be BRAP for the week.
Okay, you're Brad for the week. Oh, yeah, that's right. StreamYards is max capacity. Right. So, with that being said, the man, the myth, the legend, the man of many slaps, the man that did make a video today, and I'm so proud of him. His name is Slow Backslap. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. You know, I haven't been burned at the stake for my video yet. But I have some things.
They coming.
They coming. They're having dinner right now, but they coming.
They're going to get the steaks. Yeah,
man. I'll be like Jon Snow in front of the onslaught. It's all good. I have some things to get off my chest, and I'm probably going to say those things again, you know, in greater detail and maybe in greater volume tonight. But I, of course, don't want to step on the toes of our great guests that we got here tonight. And I just I respect these gentlemen so much. When they were like, hey, I want to come through. Now, I wanted to come through. Jelly wanted to come through before the firestorm that happened earlier today. But Eric and B was like, yo, you got some room on the panel. I got some words off my chest. And I'm like, look, they got an open door policy in here.
Yeah,
you don't even, y'all really don't even have to ask. Just show up. Just be like, hey, man, I brought some beer. I'm going to say some things. The floor is yours. So I appreciate you guys for joining us once again. And yeah, man.
Cool. Well, starting with the first man, the man that has a lot to know. He knows a lot of stuff about what's going on with game development. His name is Agent Deli. We go by Deli. Former Ubisoft developer. Please tell everybody what's been going on with you, sir.
Well, one, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate that. I'm surrounded by greater men than me here. Forte, Mo, B Money, of course, and obviously Eric. So it's always nice to be able to be surrounded by such smart and brilliant people. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Redfall. Woo! Yeah. There's no reason I should be having that much fun with the game, but man, I am making my own fun. So it's been good. It's been all right, you know. So
my God. All right, moving on to the next person, the man that plays sports games for a living, puts people in graves, still got people running from him and not playing him in a game that's been over 3 years now. The homie, the man with the great beard and an amazing sense of humor, B Money. What's going on, bro?
What's going on, man?
You tell me.
I'm glad to be here. You know, it's a great panel of gentlemen that we have here tonight, and a lot of great things to talk about. You know, so I figured, I hit you guys up earlier and see if I could jump on. So I appreciate you. Let me hop in here and get some things off my chest.
No, we appreciate you, man. And is the Warriors going to win tonight, or are they going to go down 0-2?
Man, Looney just he acting like he's sick now. They just started. They starting the other Green. Not Draymond, but the other Green that they have on their team.
Javon Green,
yeah. So they're starting him in front of Looney. It's gonna be a tall task dealing with AD. So I don't think they're winning tonight, man. If they do, it's gonna be like a 1 or 2 point win on a buzzer beater, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Well, looking forward to that. And last but not least, the man that always has a fresh cut, the man that's down there in the stiletto that we call Florida, that needs to break away from the country, but he needs to move away from it before it happens, because we love him and we appreciate him. And he's an amazing person, and he knows everything along with B Money. Eric Jackson, what's going on, bro? The voice of reason. How you doing?
What is going on? Yo, that's funny you said it, man. I actually got a fresh cut today.
Listen, man. When I see your icon, I'm always like, man, that man look like he always got a fresh cut. Always
clean. I gotta do like D Wade. You're right, man. I gotta be like D Wade and get the hell up out of here.
Wade County, man. Yeah, I'm trying to tell you, man. You got to get away from there, man, before that place breaks away and falls into the Atlantic.
Crazy, man. We got people. Got the first governor that might make Disney dip. Then that's
like still been there for decades. I mean, like for longer than we've been alive. Disney has been in Florida, and they just like, you know what?
Right.
It's time to go.
The state is Disney.
Right.
Like they bring the most money to the state. He's like, nah, I'm coming for you. You know, it's weird. It's just weirdness, man. But no, I'm happy to be here, man. I'm glad you guys had a spot for me. This week in particular, I was like, yo, there's a lot to talk about. I was happy I could make it. So yeah, I hit Slow Mo. I was like, yo, if you got a spot, we got a lot to talk about. Let's do it.
Yeah, man, definitely. Well, getting into it because it's a big panel, so it's going to be a lot of big impressions and ideas and a lot of conversation around it. Let's talk about the first topic. BioWare quietly telling people or putting people and resenting writers and stuff. And Dave Gator came out with he came out and claimed. You got to
talk about who Dave Gator is.
Yes, well, go Slow Mo, please. 2016. BioWare extraordinaire. Tell everybody who David Gator is.
David Gator is the lead writer for the Dragon Age series. He also co-wrote on a lot of other older BioWare bangers like Jade Empire, Baldur's Gate, the original Baldur's Gate. Like, he's a freaking legend when it comes to writing in video games. And he was the lead writer for Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age Awakenings, Dragon Age 2, and did pretty much the outline of Dragon Age Inquisition before he was tapped to go over to help on Anthem. So we can kind of, assume what happened from there. Well, let's not assume. Let me tell you what happened. Because he's been talking this kind of talk ever since. The first time I heard about this is when Jason Schreier did his expose on BioWare around the time that Anthem was a dumpster fire out there. And back in like 2016, when David Gator left BioWare, he left because he felt disrespected. He felt like the developers, the leadership were siding more towards the other developers that did not care for the narrative stuff, even though that was their bread and butter, even though that was what made BioWare and that everyone loved their games. They didn't care for the narrative kind of driving the development, so to speak. So he wrote a plot point and framework and everything for Anthem. A lot of the devs said it was too much like Dragon Age. It was Dragon Age in space, which I'm just like, what? I mean, compared to what Anthem's story turned out to be, you should have wished it was Dragon Age in space. But he felt disrespected and he left. And I think that if you look at like the very different BioWare today compared to then, and you look at what Anthem turned out to be, it's very light on story, and the story's abysmal. If you look at Andromeda, the characters, the really just basic villain, your Saturday morning cartoon kind of villain. Forte, do you mind? Like, people can see you, right?
I know. I did that because Rodimus said what he said. You didn't even have to mention it.
Good. No, that's great. Yeah.
You ain't even have to bring it up.
For those that are going to see this, hear this on audio.
Yeah, but you have to bring it up.
So glad Forte is on camera right now so we can see if he's eating, because he clearly be eating half the time during the podcast and act like he isn't. He's a liar. He's 3 times a liar.
Water,
anyway.
though.
But to get back to the point, I thought it was kind of interesting to kind of bring this up because David Gator is a great writer, and he's one of the reasons why BioWare it was considered to be so legendary in their time, and to see where they are now and to see how he feels like there is this movement in the video game industry where they care less about narrative, less about story, and more about other aspects to kind of make things easier, I guess, in game development where you're not so focused on that. So I just kind of want to know what the panel thought about all of that and thought about just BioWare in general, where they're at. Anybody?
Floor is open.
Where BioWare is?
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like they're stuck in like perpetual motion. right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for the most part, like the core of the studio that we came up with, the BioWare that we knew is no longer there.
Yeah.
Right. But they're trying to hold on to this, I don't know, like the mythos, like the legend of the studio. And it's almost sort of like, I get that there's a DNA there, there's a history there, but they kind of have to establish as who the new BioWare is while making that name synonymous with what it is now. And I guess that remains to be seen. But yeah. I don't know.
I mean, but like, do you want the new BioWare? Because the new BioWare seems to be like, we saw a snippet of gameplay from their test that they did, where the combat has looked like it's going more towards God of War, where it seems like they're really kind of like doing away with all of the, for Dragon Age 4, Dragon Age Redwolf to be example, all of the what people expect from Dragon Age. Doesn't seem like there's going to be too much of that in Dragon Age and Dreadwolf. I guess if you don't care about Dragon Age, you've never played them before, you didn't care for them previously, you might be interested for those. But for those long-term old BioWare Dragon Age fans, like, is that what you really want to see? And I guess it's something that, like, it's a gamble that we don't quite know whether it's going to turn out well or not. Because if you are who you are based upon what you've done before, but if you're no longer making games like that and you're going to go in a different direction, you better hope that, like, the end result, the execution of your end result is as good in level of quality as your previous games, right?
Yeah.
So,
or you have the talent.
It's sort of like that. No, go ahead, Dylan.
I was gonna say, or you have the talent to back it up, right? Like, you can't say, hey, we're switching directions. Like, hey, DPS, we're going to switch directions. And then, Bo and Forte aren't running the show anymore. It's like, if you don't have the core integrity of what built the company or what makes the game so special, a lot of people say, like, oh, the BioWare magic. That stuff is a lie, yo. That's talent. There's no magic there. That's talent. And if those people aren't there to kind of push that direction, push the studio culture, push like the cornerstones of the studio or cornerstones of a video games project, it doesn't matter what direction you want to go. It's going to end up, you're going to end up, driving into a wall.
Agree.
Yeah. That's the thing. If you're going to take that new direction, then you damn sure better bring it home. And you kind of need that thing where it's sort of like, I didn't even know this is what I wanted from Dragon Age. Like, I'm okay with this change because it kind of makes sense, you know what I'm saying? And because everything else still feels like, in a way, old BioWare. Like, the storytelling is good, but the gameplay is different, but the story is really good, and the systems are really good, and all that, and the mechanics all come off. But if you don't hit those marks, trying to go a different direction, that could bury them pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think that's why, to me, they shouldn't revisit old IP, because without the people there, that kind of brought that magic to those franchises, being Dragon Age and Mass Effect, I think you should just pivot in a different direction. You know what I mean? It's just like when you go to, like, your favorite restaurant or your favorite bar, you go there for the people. You go there because you enjoy the atmosphere, and then once that changes, it's like, well, I really used to like, this place, but they have new management, or the bartender is different. They don't treat me the same way that they did before. So you start going somewhere else. And I think that, for BioWare, from the gameplay that we saw when they were, trying to, it looks like they're going in the direction of God of War, and not really having, the tactical gameplay like they had in the original Dragon Age, and even in 4, they had that Inquisition, they had that to a certain extent. If you're going to drastically change the gameplay, then I think you just move to a different IP. And if you want to change the philosophy of what BioWare is, then demonstrate that in a new IP, and don't revisit old IP where people kind of expect a certain style of gameplay or a certain style of storytelling, from those IP.
Yeah, I agree. I know the chat's like, hey, yo, let's get to the good stuff. So we gonna move on past BioWare. Like, honestly, like, it's David Gator. I think he's a bit bitter because he kind of built the company, and I mean, like, he literally is saying the same thing he said to Jason Schreier. Like, 5 years ago.
Yeah,
like,
years ago.
this man is still on it. Like, man, F them. They screwed me. Like it's just he ain't about BioWare. Like he's there's really nothing new going on there. This is nothing that's like super imperative. Forte, what's next on the docket, bro?
Let's talk about that PlayStation 5 Pro rumor, man. Just came out over the last since yesterday. We had a article.
That's been out for a while now from like Tom Henderson.
No, there's another one where someone actually came out and confirmed and said that they actually, it's like they're doubling down on it. It's on a couple of different websites. If you on the
that's from Tom Henderson. He says that the dev kits are out.
Yeah. There's another one.
The source is Inside Gaming.
The source is Inside Gaming. Yeah,
but that's Tom Henderson.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's duh. Yeah, you're right.
It's all good.
So it looks like development has definitely started on it. They're basically saying that this is something that's going to hit in either the end of 2024 or it's going to be between January 2025 and March of 2025. Do we think it's too soon for this, or do we think that this is right on schedule for what they want to do when it comes to mid-gen refreshes and stuff with the PlayStation?
Was Gotham Knights at 60 frames per second?
You tell me you played that trash, not me.
I played it on PC.
Yeah,
where I played it at native 4K, anywhere between 80 to 100 frames per second. After it was fixed, of course, it took like 4 months. But on consoles, did they ever get a performance patch? No, they didn't.
They did not.
So
I can attest to that.
So maybe look, I'm gonna say it like this, right? It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to upgrade. You can get a look. I never got a PS4 Pro. Never got one. I always stayed with the base PS4. I was good.
Oh, you stay with that helicopter, man?
It's a jet engine.
No,
put some respect on that name. Helicopter's putting it lightly, bro.
Man, that thing was a F-16 jump taking off.
So all I'm saying is you don't have to upgrade, but if you really out here wanting that 60 frames per second, make sure you get that 60. You might want to check out what this PS5 Pro is actually rocking with. Again, it's optional. It's an option, but at least with that, you might actually get a little bit better ray tracing, a little bit better, but definitely 60 frames per second for all the games that's coming out. Hopefully, you would think, right?
Oh shoot! You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna prioritize 4K ultra settings and still get 30 frames per second.
Nah, man, we're bumping up to that 8K, bro. We're gonna have 8K, 30 frames a second. We're gonna push on to the next horizon.
Oh man, you asking for too much.
We got TV.
At least I don't believe you're asking for too much, but some people.
We got TVs and monitors and stuff. Forte. We gotta keep it moving.
I'm with you, bro. What the rest of you guys think? What do you think about PlayStation 5 Pro? A lot of people are basically just saying that it's probably too early for it. I mean, if you look at PlayStation 4, it came out in 2017, which was what 4 years. 4 years. 4 years after the original PS4. And if we're talking about 2024, that is roughly 4 years, especially if you go 2025, then you're really talking like 4.5 years at that point. Do you guys think it's too early, or do you think people are just overreacting to the fact that they probably just haven't been able to get any because of the stock just finally picking up over the course of the last 6 months?
I mean, just going off history, then, just kind of aligns with what we saw with last generation. But in regards to if it's too early, I think it is. You know what I mean? Like, we're just now starting to get games where they're exclusively on the platform, where they're not cross-platform. And we haven't seen a lot of games really flex their muscles on this hardware, just because they had to be cross-platform. So in my opinion, I think we need at least a year or two where we really see these games kind of fleshed out on the platform, see what these consoles can actually do, and then we can kind of move on to the pro models. But if it comes out, I'm sure people will hop on it. But until they actually prove that it's going to be a big enough jump, I don't see the need for it.
That's what come with the
take. I think it's going to be a hot take. I don't think it's a PS5 Pro. I think that's a early development kit for the PS6. I'm going to be real with you guys.
No,
I'm going to be. No way. And the only reason I say that is because AMD's new APU Strix is coming out soon, and in like 2025. And to me, the way that they're bumping up the RDNA 3.5, RDNA 4, they're going for that huge jump here soon. And they're bumping the CUs up to 40 on an APU. That's a 4060, 4070 class APU. That's not a joke of a machine right there, on a CPU. I don't know. I just don't think that's something to slouch at. And I think that the PS4 or the PS5 Pro, one, I think it's too early. Two, I think it's entirely unnecessary. As a person who's worked on the hardware, I think it's completely unnecessary. I think that they delivered on everything that we need, and the PS5 Pro would I feel like the PS5 Pro would do the same thing the PS4 Pro did, which is like kind of just give it a tiny boost.
Help VR.
Yeah, it helped VR, but I genuinely don't think that it's going to be such a night and day difference, because if they drop a PS5 Pro that is so astronomically better than the PS5, they might have cannibalized the PS5 and just slapped a 6 on it. They cannot make it more than like 20% more efficient and more power hungry, because if they make it over 30, 35 or 40, the jump from like a 4060 to like a 4080 is around like 30 or 40%, and there's a noticeable difference between the two. And I think that if they release like a PS5 Pro that is like 30% or 40% better than the PS5, just throw the PS5 out. You know what I mean? Like, y'all should have waited, or two, like it would just be completely unnecessary, because then there would actually be no reason to have a PS5, right? Other than the fact that it's $399. But even at $399,
they probably drop the price
down
of the original a little bit. They probably give it a price cut. But I mean, we don't know the specs of this PS5 Pro. We don't really know anything about it outside the fact that it is rumored to be in existence. But from everyone that I know that has speculated about it, the people that have like, I have sources, the people with sources, right?
Sources, insider. Jim Ryan is actually my favorite PlayStation insider.
Like, all of them are thinking that it still will be RDNA 2. So it's not going to be like RDNA 3 architecture. It's still RDNA 2, but probably just a beefier GPU. Probably better cooling than what the PS5 currently has. Able to, eke out some things here and there that will make it an actual performance improvement over the PS5, but not significantly so, where it's just like, we're basically killing our own sales because we're doing great right now and we don't need this. Like, if you think about, like, I think all the rumors about the Switch Pro were true. That Nintendo really was going to drop a Switch Pro. Probably wasn't going to be called Switch Pro, but they were going to drop an upgraded version of the Switch. But then they looked at the numbers and was like, we're killing it right now. Why if we drop an updated version that's more powerful than the current Switch, we're going to start getting games that actually can that this new one can handle that the old one can't. Now we're going to start splitting our own player base. Why do that when we can just drop a Zelda, like Forte is showing, a completely nothing changed Nintendo Switch with just some stupid colors that show it's supposed to be in an emblem on the back, and we'll get the same people who bought the OLED to buy this. So that's why I mentioned the OLED. That's why I think the OLED, I think that was part of what the Switch Pro was supposed to be. They said, you know what? We already bought all these screens from Samsung. Let's keep those. We'll just upgrade and we'll finally get a real kickstand on the Nintendo Switch. And then we'll give them a slightly updated.
See that? That's a kickstand.
We'll give them a slightly updated version of the Switch that internally does nothing different than the original, but they'll buy it anyway. And guess what happened? They bought it anyway, so it's smart. But now they're talking that talk like they might come out with a new a new platform or actual Pro now. Why? Because you look at the year-over-year numbers, they're down compared to last year. Now's the time to drop some new hardware, because now your new hardware wouldn't be cannibalizing your old hardware.
For the Switch, yes, but for the PS5, it's like I feel like the PS5 is exactly, and this may be boring for some of y'all, but it's gonna be like how Nvidia did the 4070 and 4080, and then the Ti as well too, right? So the 4070 is $600, right? MSRP anyways, we're just gonna go by MSRP, and it's priced at $600, and is to make the 4070 Ti look good, right? Because the 4070 Ti is $800, and it is it's like 40 or 20% faster. It's 30% faster, right? And then the 4080 is 61% faster, right? But it's double the price. And the 4080 is priced in a way to make the 4090 actually look like a good deal, because it actually is a good deal. That's going to be the problem if we actually have like non-incremental performance increases with the PS5 Pro. And that's why I don't think it's an actual Pro model. I'm all open to be proven wrong, but the way performance is actually going now, and especially with AMD's track record with the new APUs, with the new GPUs, with the new architecture and stuff like that, they've wrung out as much as they can from RDNA 2, so they have to move forward. If they move forward with RDNA 2 and put the top tier to line in whatever into the PS5 Pro, you're jumping, if you actually do the top of the line, you're jumping like over 30%. You're going to have to put that out solely to make the PS5 look attractive. And that's the problem. The PS5 already looks attractive. It's $499 Blu-ray player, the whole 9 yards, and it plays all your games at 60 or whatever, quote unquote, loosely 60. It plays all your games. You don't have to buy a new library, the whole 9 yards, right? Like, what more can you ask for? And games are actually coming out, blah, 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 this and that. There's like PlayStation Plus, everything. If you go for a more powerful one, like a genuinely more powerful one, you're gonna have a real big issue with how the PlayStation 6 is going to operate. Because then if you have a mid-gen refresh here and then you still are on a generational leap to send the PS6, the PS6 is going to have to be over 50% on top of the 30% increase. And AMD is currently not at that level yet until almost 2025. And we all know how it goes with the first generation launch of anything AMD does, or NVIDIA. It's going to be rough. And it might not land. So I genuinely feel like they are testing development kits, and they're testing to see what the next generation offers, because they haven't even ironed out the current generation. So why even add anything else into the current generation when we haven't even figured it out yet?
So Dai, speaking as a developer, do you feel that Gotham Knights not being capable at 60 frames per second on the PS5 was a WB Montreal issue or a PS5 issue?
I think it was a WB Montreal issue. I'm going to be honest with you.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
agree. I don't think it's a PS5 issue.
In competito, with I know that's not a real like Italian word of saying incompetent, but y'all know.
Sounded official though.
Yeah, it sounded official. I think they just didn't know what they was doing, but I think that like if you, in order to I think from Sony's perspective, in order to make sure that their platform doesn't look bad when you have not so talented developers making games on your platform, you give them a little bit of power to work with, and maybe they could brute force their way into 60 frames per second. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. But so like people didn't think they would do a detachable drive for those who got digital, but apparently they're working on that too.
I think that's going to be what the Pro is, honestly, on top of whatever improvements they're going to make on the system. Because I think they want to streamline it and make one universal system for not two different SKUs. So why not make your Pro system be the one that has the detachable disk drive that you can add to it? Because you're not going to be able to do it on the Pro that they had, the system they have now that's digital. They're going to have a completely different SKU for it. So why not make the Pro be that and make it a digital system so you can keep the price on it semi down and then make it so you can add a disk drive to that version of the system. So I think that's going to be in conjunction with it too.
Cool. Hey, either or, we're gonna find out. I think we're gonna find out before the year.
But the biggest question is it really going to matter when it comes to games? Because we all know that games are these developers and these publishers actually going to take advantage of that power and not have our game. Well, they'll probably take advantage of the power, but are they going to make it so those games aren't buggy as all messes like they've been over the course of the last couple of days? And that's going to our next topic, talking about Redfall and what's going on with that game and the disaster that's been going on. And yes, I'm talking about how the PlayStation 4, but we also got to remember that Xbox is going to pretty much do the same thing at some point. They're going to come out with their next version or their mid-gen refresh of the Xbox.
They were saying they were working. They've been working
on it for
years ago that they were working on a new Xbox. So
right, exactly. So what do we think? So first of all, Deli, I'll go to you first because you said you last one that said you still playing it. What are your thoughts on it, man? I saw you streaming it.
Deli had to. He put a message. He's not.
Oh, he put a message. Cool. Yeah, I just seen it. All right. Well, I'll go over to you, Slow Mo, because I know you put a lot of time into it. Tell me your frustrations with Redfall, sir.
Oh my gosh! I should go last.
You want to go last?
Because I'm gonna have a lot to say.
You're right. You're gonna eat up half the show with yours. All right. Yeah. Well, B Money, Eric Jackson, which one of you guys played Redfall? What are your thoughts on it if you have? And where did you play it at? Did you play it on Game Pass, on Xbox, or did you play it on PC?
I'll jump in there first. I played it on Series X on Game Pass. And I hit what looks like a lot of people hit about the 2.5 mark, and and kind of said, all right, I think I've seen enough, right?
Right.
Tapped out,
and that's pretty much where I was. And here's the thing when it comes to Redfall, the overall concept of Redfall, I think, is actually cool. I mean, it's vampires, it's vampire hunting, but I do think that there's something there, right? So let me start by saying that, But the reason I kind of ducked out on it is because I said, you've seen like the hallmarks of like the different reviews, or people are saying, where it's like, the world feels lifeless, the AI is dead. We know all those things, and I'm sure a Slow-Mo will expand upon that. But I kind of bounced on it because I was just getting aggravated because I said the developer that made this, I know they're much more capable than what this is. And I feel like I'm doing them a disservice by playing through this and forcing my way through. Like what I feel like some people are doing just to cap for the platform, like, whoa, look at me, I'm having fun. I get my friends together and we're having fun with it. And I'm like, well, if you got to pull your friends in to get through to make yourself have fun with it, is it really that good? That's kind of how I look at it, right? But I'm just kind of walking back from it because I'm just like, yo, like Arcane is one of my favorite developers. I know they're more capable of this. I don't want to be a part of that number when Xbox inevitably goes, 2 million people, killed 7 million vampires over the first week of Redfall, with that BS. And I'm like, I ain't contributing to that number. In any long, extended way, I should say. But no, I don't know. Just as I was just going through it, just in that 2.5 hours I played, going from point A to point B, I'm like, there's nothing really going on here. Some of the guns are cool. Some of the weapons are cool. I like the vampire, like the killing animations and stuff like that. But when you're just creeping up like on some of the bad guys in the game, or creeping up some of the vampires, they don't even notice that you're there. And you're doing that whack elbow hit, and the powers are whack. Like nothing. It's just the whole thing.
The powers are whack.
They're unnecessary. Honestly, they're not even needed because the enemies don't present any kind of challenge. I know I'm jumping out of turn. Go ahead.
No. Just jump in there, man. Because it's just basically I don't have like a whole lot to say about it because all I can say is this is not the Arcane that I know. I know they have two different teams, but both of those teams to me have delivered games that I really dig and really like, and this ain't it. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, and for me, like I'm on the outside looking in because I haven't touched this game, and kind of like what Eric said, I'm a big Arcane fan, and for that reason, I'm not gonna touch the game just because of how it looks, in regards to the gameplay. Like I've watched so many people's videos of of actually playing the game, and everything that they've shown is not impressive. And you guys know I mentioned this on Brat. Like the few times that they showed off the game, I wasn't really impressed on everything they showed off. It didn't look like an arcane game to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like they were kind of stepping outside the box to try to appeal to more people. And for me, like that's not what I want from Arcane. I want you to make a dope experience. You know what I mean? I want you to make that immersive sim. I want to be able to do all the stuff in your game that that you've been known for. And when you kind of just go make a shooter that doesn't really look that inspired, I was like, I can't really jump in on that. If the game would have been something that reviewed well, and people were talking about all the crazy stuff that they're doing in the game, then yeah, I would have jumped in, checked it out. But from what I'm seeing, it doesn't look like it's a great experience. So I'm kind of just put off, and it's probably a game that I won't touch at all.
Yeah.
And
before you go, Sloan, I'll let you jump in. I'm gonna say this, and I know people are saying, well, they'll continue to work on it and they'll do this, and I know Deli will speak to this more, but what would they really be able to do to it? Because I said the big talking point was the 30 frames per second and the 60 frames per second patch, and I'm like, well, right now that's the least of their problems is getting that patch. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on with this game that even 60 frames per second is not gonna fix or make better, right? And I know we're going to get to the Phil interview later, but I just want to kind of highlight this one point because I saw people already kind of glomming onto this thing where he kind of mentioned in the interview about not standing in the way of teams wanting to do something different. And I saw that before he even mentioned that people were saying, well, they're trying something new. Fine. No gamer is going to stand in the way of a talented team trying something new. But what's the point of trying something new if the shit is whack? And on top of that, knowing that this team is more capable of that. We've seen plenty of teams who broke outside of what they typically do and deliver something really cool.
Yep. And we saw it earlier this year with Tango and Hi-Fi Rush.
Right, exactly. And we're not going to sit here and go, this is completely different and new for Arcane, because it looks like some of their character models that we're used to seeing stuff. The character models have always had like bigger hands than normal, but they went crazy in some of these.
Oh man, them hands is everybody in this game needs to be a basketball player, yo. Like,
right?
Like, the kind of hands these guys got. I mean, you can palm 2 balls in one hand. Ooh,
right?
Quadruple pause on that one. I did not mean it like that.
Jump and grab the ball out of the sky with your thumb and forefinger. It's that kind of thing. But something I'll throw it back to you. But I'm gonna ask you this question. People say, well, they're trying something new. So outside of adding multiplayer, what's really new about the game that for Arcane? It's still in their wheelhouse. It's just trying multiplayer made this game the way it is, made them like step on the rake with it.
Look, man, I have never really rocked with Arcane games like that before. I've always said they are quality titles. I've always said they are quality games. Forza, you might want to minimize your messages. There you go. I've always said there are quality games, but they're not for me. Because they got the whole stealth side of things, which is fine. We have a dearth of stealth games in the video game industry now. So them having stealth elements in their game is always something that I at least appreciate, even though it's not for me. Because it's good that people who like stealth games get something like that from Arcane. That's it. This game was greenlit at a time where Bethesda was, quite frankly, looking for ways to generate revenue because their games weren't selling. They would get good reviews, but they wouldn't sell. So this is where we get Fallout 76. This is where we get Redfall from. But after playing it, like, this shit just been canceled. Like, as soon as Xbox saw the game, and apparently from what I'm hearing is that they saw the game and they weren't impressed. You're not impressed, cancel the game.
Right.
Like why are you wasting Arcane Austin's time as well as your own money and our time as well? Like, cancel it before you even show the game so that you don't have to deal with the whole Scalebound or Fable Legends situation. No, because we don't know it exists. Cancel it before you get to that point. If you're not impressed with what you see and for what the final product was. I played it on PC, so I had to worry about the whole 30 frames per second. I played it with the Ash and Luca. for some of it, for some of my time with it, I didn't have to do what she dealt with, where she felt nauseous with like the frame rate and I guess the field of view of everything. She'd be running down the street with me, and textures are loading in late. And I mean, for myself, I actually almost every time I would go maybe a block or two down the street, I would have like a massive frame rate drop as it's loading in the new like other aspects of the open map, and it's very, very CPU bound, which it's probably right up there with some of the worst PC releases this year, which is kind of hard to do considering The Last of Us Part 1 was abysmal. Forspoken was pretty bad. It's been a lot of bad releases.
Joel out here looking like blackface.
Right. And it's to get into the reason why I feel like they should have just canceled the game is because a 60 frames per second mode, if it was there at launch, it wouldn't have saved this game. It would not have made it better on Metacritic. It would not have had a better reception than what it is. This game, I don't know what they're trying to do here. Are they trying to be like Borderlands? Are they trying to be like Far Cry? You're kind of failing at everything that you're attempting to do. You marketed this game. Your very first time we ever saw Redfall, it was a 5-minute reveal trailer that we have yet to see anything in this game of the same level of quality as that reveal trailer, that cinematic trailer. In the game, we have watercolor still pictures, and they're just moving the camera left to right to kind of like simulate like movement or something. It's a flip book. And I'm just like, bruh, like how I see this with indie games. And I have no problem when I see that with indie games. Because I know it's like 5 dudes in their closet trying to make a game, their first game. You know, props to them. First time around, ain't got no budget, ain't got no money. This is a different story. This is Arcane Austin, backed by a $1 trillion corporation. Supposedly dropping a $70 price tag, supposedly dropping a AAA game, and I'm getting AA 1A content in that game. Unacceptable. You have a skill tree that's worthless. A third of your skill tree is dedicated to multiplayer. But what if I want to play solo? I have no use for that third of the skill tree. The other aspects,
they pushed the solo aspect of it.
Right. The other aspects of the game, the other aspects of the skill tree is they do like very minor upgrades to your abilities, but it's like I don't even need my abilities. Your enemies are so easy to kill. Like literally the AI, this is the worst AI I've ever seen in a game. I was live on Lunchtime with Slow Mo earlier this week. I walk into a room. I'm searching through stuff through the room. There's a vampire in the room with me. The vampire doesn't notice me. I look over. Oh, snap. There's a vampire. He's staring at the wall for whatever reason. He's just staring at like the wall. I walk up behind him and I'm like, this dude, I mean, I made all kinds of noise walking in here, knocking over chairs and stuff. He don't care. I got my flashlight on. I flicker the flashlight behind him. Nothing. No response. Nothing. I finally just shoot him in the back. And then he goes, oh. And I'm just like, what the heck is that? The enemies are so bad. Do you know that you can beat bosses just by jumping up on a car?
Yeah, you can. That's fun.
You don't even like they can't hit you. Do you know you can stand behind these bulletproof in like invincible chairs? And vampires, they don't know how to get around the chair. Oh my gosh, the chair in front of me. What the heck? What do I do? It's like a shield. No, it's a chair, bro. They are the worst. The worst AI. It's just there's nothing for me to do besides just shoot my gun. And the guns. I implore everyone that's listening to me right now. Stop listening to some of these content creators.
Uh-oh.
I ain't gonna say no names. Y'all already know who I'm talking about. Stop listening because they lying to you. They lie about so much. There are content creators out here who told the lie that Machine Games and id Software was helping Arcane develop the gunplay in this game. Y'all have played Machine Games games before. Y'all played Wolfenstein.
Yep.
Y'all played Doom, 2016 Doom Eternal.
Yep.
Is it anything like Redfall?
Nope. Redfall has some of the worst, like they've never been known for like the great shooting, but the way it was always handled, like in like Dishonored and even like Prey, like it kind of made sense for like what they were doing, right? The gunplay in this is even worse. Like I wouldn't even like aim down sights anymore because I'm like, this is so off. I would just start shooting from the hip all the time.
And you know what? You can't do anything about the aim down sights at all. You can't adjust it because they have no ADS sensitivity. They also have no horizontal or vertical sensitivity. They got something called input preset with zero explanation of what that is. And there's a normal, a fast, and a slow. And it's just like, well, what did they do? What's the purpose of it? Like, if you're going to have as limited customization for the controls and the guns and how you shoot your guns that they have in this game, you better be rock solid on the default level. And they're not. It's awful. And to bring it to get back to what I was saying about certain content creators, the only thing that we have confirmation from Arcane Austin is that id Software came through and gave them feedback on the gunplay. You know the difference between feedback and helping them develop the gunplay is? There's a freaking Grand Canyon's wide difference. A delta. A freaking I'm about to say some stuff. It's a delta of difference between these two things. You know, I could give someone feedback. I can say, hey, Forte, you know, before the show goes live, you might, you know, a few hours earlier, you might want to test everything out and make sure everything is good to go so that, like, right before we go live, you're not like, oh my God, things don't work. That could be some feedback, right? But does the Forte need to take that feedback? Does he need to actually implement that feedback and actually do those things? No, because we see him not do this every single week. That's the difference between giving feedback and actually doing the work. They didn't actually do the work. So stop saying that people who didn't do the work did work on something because you're capping. And just stop listening to some of these people, because they are literally free mouthpieces of marketing for these platforms. They do not have any objectivity whatsoever.
Nope. They monetize your hype in the effort of gaining and keeping access to get free stuff and everything else, and monetize and the whole nine.
Right. And then when they get called out, what do? They cover their own butt.
Yeah.
So
or start deleting, or you know.
Yeah, I just the last thing I'll say is that the weapons are weird and pointless. You'll have a legendary level 2 weapon that's like less effective than a legendary green weapon. The actual like stats are like make no sense, and it's just like, all right, whatever, bro. It's just it's a silly, easy game that has no cutscenes in it whatsoever, and they want to charge people $70 for it. I have no idea how internally this was mock reviewed so high, but I guess we'll get to that later. That's Die. You can take it away from here. I'm done. I just
you finally got it out of you,
man. It's a bad game. It's a bad game.
The only thing I'll add to this, mine is very short. You see it on the screen. This is I got 15 minutes past this part, and when I walked out this door, and this is on PC, by the way, so this isn't even on Xbox. When I walked out this door and I saw these water textures, I was like, oh boy,
that's water textures.
Look at look at. Look at the.
I thought that was bugs.
I even looked up. Listen, I looked up.
I thought that was a shadow or something. What the heck is that?
It's supposed to be water. Like you gonna see. You look up at the door at the top. You see the water dripping off the door.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be like the splashing of the water on the ground. And I was like, what
somebody
is
pour
this?
acid on the metal or something.
Wow. You know, that kind of reminds me of one time I was walking down this, like, in the game, I was walking down this, like, this alley. There was like trees around, and the trees, like the texture of the trees were just flickering. And I just I stopped moving and I just watched it. And it's just like the actual like texture level. Even though I had the game running on Epic, the textures were going from like epic to medium to low back to epic. It just kept changing every second. And I was just like, what the heck is going on? That it looked terrible. And I'm just like, this game wasn't ready. Game wasn't ready.
Yeah.
So before Deli jumps in there, do you guys think this is going to be a game that continues to see support, where in a year we're like, you know what, we can revisit this and Redfall is a better game than what was released?
Yeah, of course. A game support doesn't end on launch.
Or is this the game that they give up on in 6 months and they just move on to the next thing?
I mean, they gave up on Bleeding Edge in a year.
So what do you think, Deli? We'll let you finish out the topic.
About Redfall in general?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that there was a huge mismanagement issue, and I think that the communication issue the communication at the studio didn't help either. I mean, you know, finding out that the 60 FPS doesn't work a few months before launch is not a very good pipeline, is it? You know, it's not a very good production pipeline. It's not very good scheduling, and it doesn't give enough breathing room to be able to actually fix the problem, because it could be anything, right? There are plenty of areas in the game that require more resources than other areas for some god-awful reason, right? Or maybe there's just hitching on something. I don't actually know. You know, I suspect that there's a CPU bound issue along with a memory leak. Or maybe it's just some computational issue where, you know, it's not doing the integer math for floating point 32 precision properly, and maybe it's running at quarter speed or something, because there's seriously something hugely wrong where my 3090 is being bottlenecked, or it's just not working, right? It's running at 98%. Okay, cool. I look at the temps, everything's good. I look at my CPU, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm hitting 28 FPS. I'm hitting 40 FPS at 1440p on medium settings. And that's rough, you know what I mean? Like, just because I don't care that the game's running at 28% or 28 frames, I don't care, man. I'll play any of this stuff at 30 FPS. I'll play it at 12%. It doesn't matter. It's just that just because I'm okay with it doesn't mean that the problems don't exist. And I think that there are a lot of problems. And I think that, again, Arcane just didn't have enough time to properly troubleshoot these issues. And and I think that they just heard about it way too late. Because we all know that graphics and optimization come last in the pipeline. So when you have 4 or 5 months left to go, and that sounds like a really, really good time, and then you find out that the game doesn't work. I mean, how devastating is it to find out that your game doesn't work within 3 months or 5 months, right? That's just not enough time to be able to crush, 8,000 bugs. Imagine walking into work and being like, yo, we got 12,000 bugs to solve in 4 months' time. Plus, we have to make the game go gold. Plus, we have to do a day one patch. Plus, we have to do support. Plus, we have to plan like the marketing push. Plus, we have to actually support the product when it goes on live, because we could put it on live and it doesn't matter how well you simulate things. You can never test properly millions of people to go and download your game at once and playing at one time. It's just not good. It's just not feasible.
Dilly, I got a question for you, bro.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this a AAA game?
It's a AAA budget, yeah. It's like what, 30 million, 40 million?
Okay, yeah, because like I remember Brian Fargo, head of Index Out, saying that AAA starts at like 28 or 30 million dollars on up. So you think this is like they spent 30 million on this?
Yeah, like 30, 35 million, something like that.
So it's barely AAA.
I mean, regardless if it's barely, it crosses that threshold. So yeah, I would consider it AAA. I think it is actually AAA.
Because I just went like with the lack of cutscenes and just, I mean, I don't know how big Arcane Austin really is.
How much of that budget went to that original trailer?
Right. So did marketing push it over, or is the actual?
I think marketing pushed it over, right? Because like,
So
you
the
gotta
actual
think-
production of the game is AA, but with marketing it became AAA.
Yes, for sure. I think so, because you got to think that the marketing, you got to double the marketing cost for whatever the game cost is, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you genuinely never know what it's going to reach. Because not only do you have to reach, I'm just going to say 26 markets, but I don't know how many markets Game Pass services, right? So let's say 100 markets, right? You got to service 100 markets, then you got to pay the people to do so, then you got to translate, then you got to make sure the content, right? And then you got to make sure that it abides by all the rules. So like if Saudi Arabia can't show blood, then we got to work with their rules and their laws and stuff like that. So if if a game is supposed to be 15 to 20 million, or let's say the development cost is 30 million, right? And that's about the same cost as Halo 3. I think Halo 3 was around 29 million. And then but their marketing budget was 40 million. So not only did it almost double, it was like 1.5 times the actual budget, putting the game at almost 70 million when less than half of that was spent on the actual game itself. So yeah, I think that maybe, let's say the game is like 20, 29, 30, let's say 30 for an easy number, $30 million, and marketing is, let's say, another 30. We're looking at $60 million. That's a AAA budget. You know what I mean? And AAA used to be 15, 20 million back in the day. Now it's like 60 to 125 million. You know what I mean? And if it's over 60, yeah, it's a AAA game, regardless of how you want to spin it. Or, a lot of people say, oh yeah, AAA quality or whatever, but that's a AAA budget.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have had come to the conclusion that it's not Arcane Austin's fault that the game is in the state that it's in, but that they probably shouldn't have gone with Unreal Engine 4. What are your thoughts on that?
Shouldn't have or should have?
Should not have. They
should not have.
Some people believe they should not have gone with Unreal Engine 4 for this open world game, especially if it's their first foray into Unreal Engine. When
I think it's their
previously
second foray.
What was the first one?
The DLC for Prey.
Oh, that was Unreal? Okay.
That was Unreal. They swapped from
Typhoon Hunter. Yeah.
They swapped from CryEngine, which is a C++ base. And then they swapped to Unreal Engine 4, which is again C++ base.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are currently on Unreal Engine 4, which is C++ base, obviously, because it's the same engine. And then the Void engine, I believe, is a modification of idTech 6, which is C++ as well too. So the knowledge and foundation is there. So I don't think that they would have quote unquote switch engines or whatever. I think that keeping on a C++ engine is good. Right. So I don't think that there is a problem with the. I may get flack for this. I'm always getting flack for random ass things, but I think that the game is foundationally and fundamentally fine. The looting system works, the gunplay is serviceable. It works. You know what I mean? It works. No, it works regardless of how you want to spin it. It works. You push a button and the gun fires. It does damage.
It does fire.
It's serviceable. It works. It works. And the loosest terms, it works. If you want to spin it any other way, it doesn't matter. I don't really care. But the gunplay works. The looting system works. The level works. The story missions work. The side missions work. I'm about to hit the second area of the game, 8 hours in. So I can't really speak on the full experience because I don't know. Maybe there's a detrimental bug, when I reach the second, portion of the game and then I can't complete the game, then I would classify it as unfinished because I can't actually beat it. But all of the fundamentals are there and the potential is there. The problem is it's just really rudimentary. It's really basic. It's really just bare bones. And that's one of those.
You can walk across the majority of the map and not run into an enemy.
Yeah, it's empty. It's whatever. It's just, like I said, it's bare bones. And that's just what they had. You can obviously tell, or at least I can obviously tell, that they were under harsh time constraints because a lot of this stuff can be fixed in post. Like all of it can be fixed in post. The memory leak, CPU bound issues, engine optimizations, quality issues, adding enemies. adding enemy spawns and stuff like that, changing enemy pathing, changing AI, like all of that can be added in post. So like nothing's technically missing from the package where you have to like actually rework, right? Like the co-op works and all of the guns work, right? Like let's say the stake launcher just didn't work, right? Like that's something that you have to actually go in.
What it sounds
and
like
fix.
you're describing to me is an unfinished game.
I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna argue with you.
Year.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue. Yo, yeah, I've been very vocal about this. I think they should have needed another year. Genuinely.
I think they should have. I will again. I think they should have
canceled the
game.
They
should have canceled it. Look, I'm saying that based on the fact that like I don't think they believed in the game, and I can tell they didn't believe in the game because they didn't put a budget behind it. They put a but when In Exile was like we want full voice acting for everything in the game. We right now for Wasteland 3 we have no voice acting. We want full voice acting for everything. They delayed the game and put voice acting in for everything. When Double Fine was like, we took out the boss battles because we just didn't have it in the budget to be able to get these boss battles in the game. Can you imagine playing Psychonauts 2 with no boss battles? It's a different game. That game, the boss battles in that game were awesome. They gave them the money to make sure Psychonauts 2 had boss fights. Now, why the heck Redfall ain't got no cutscenes? Because I don't think they cared about this game. They did not care about this game at all. And if you don't care about the game, if you don't believe in it, why abandon it? At least give it a budget. If you're not gonna give it a budget, cancel it. That's just I feel that any of these games that have come out that they're working on, if you don't believe that the studio that's working on the game, the vision that they have is going to be something that's going to be rock solid. Forget the Metacritic, whether you think it might be 80 or 60 or whatever. If you think this is going to be an experience that gamers are going to love and enjoy, the same way they believed in Hi-Fi Rush and was like, we're going to stealth launch this because we think it's going to be that good that once we stealth launch it, it's going to take people by storm. If you actually have that kind of thought about it, give it what it needs, but don't market the game with animation that's not there. Don't like completely ignore the studio and then realize like at the 11th hour you can't do 60 frames per second. Oh no.
I don't think they should have canceled the game. I think this is one of those things that the money would have been either made back or it would have been accounted for. The losses would have been accounted for, which probably attributes to where it lands on the fiscal year or how it actually lands bumped up against another video game or whatever. Because if Starfield comes out in September or whatever, then I mean, this game can take a loss for 3 months or whatever, and that's perfectly fine. Like that can be budgeted inside and accounted for inside like revenue or whatever loss. Mm-hmm. But no, I don't think canceling would have done any good. 2, it would have been damaging to the reputation even further. And then 3, I think that the investors would not have been happy about that.
No, I'm not saying cancel it after they announced it. Like after you announce it, it's you need to at that point it's on the table. Then at that point, whether you believe in it or not, you need to give it as much money as possible to make sure that make sure it can be as good as it could possibly be. But people are saying that like they never even believed in the game when they first saw it, which is like when they first did the acquisition.
It's pretty ludicrous, honestly. I think that's I know that Phil said like, oh, we don't want to stifle creativity, but that's extremely damaging to be able to have to, beg and plead for the ability to make something proper, whether it be, again, I blame this on studio management and everything else and production pipelining and scheduling and all that stuff, because how can you have a game that is lacking in either talents, resources, or other things, right? Obviously, they're lacking in resources because they had to but they had to ask like 3 different studios for feedback, which is fine. That's actually a normal thing to do. But having to do it is a totally different thing than wanting to do it, right? Because I know that like when I might get like Phil Spencer knocking at my door here shortly. So if I just like cut off mid sentence, I'll let you know. But when the new Elder Scrolls 6 game launched for inside company testing, company-wide testing, that was
which Elder Scrolls?
The new one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they opened it up to company-wide testing inside Microsoft. Not too long ago, probably like a year ago, dude. Like,
wait. Elder Scrolls?
Yeah. I tweeted this like a year ago,
like the game after Skyrim.
Yes, Elder Scrolls 6. They prototyped out something and then they put it out for company-wide testing. That was not actually that long ago. It was probably about a year ago when I was still at Microsoft. And that was cool. Like being able to hear that, like, we need feedback from this prototype, blah, 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 this and that. That's cool. That's neat. But having to say, hey, we need 3 or 4 studios to come in and help us because we desperately need it. Not desperately, but let's just say we need the feedback is a totally different position. And again, having to beg and plead for support is not, you're already on life support at that point, right? Like if a company doesn't believe in you and says, hey, we don't care about the budget and we don't think this game is going to do well. Yeah, just keep riding it out. But, we're just going to have to force a deadline and push it out. That's tough. That sounds like the same issue with Halo. That sounds like the same issue with a lot of things over at Microsoft. And that needs to be addressed, regardless if Microsoft had a hand in the change jar, or whatever the analogy is. But, a piece of the pie or whatever. I think that it comes down to studio management, studio culture, production pipeline, and everything like that, because that's the most important thing. If Todd Howard, CEO of Bethesda Game Studio, can't come out and say, hey guys, Arcane Austin needs some help, or if Harvey Smith can't, send an email to Todd Smith and say, or Todd Howard and say, hey, can we do something about this? Like, we're kind of falling behind on deadlines. So do you guys think that we can get more talent, or you guys think that we can schedule something differently? I mean, that really, really genuinely comes down to studio management and there's nothing else you can say about that, right? Like that's 100% on studio management. Like I really wish I could spin it any other way, but that's just,
okay.
Yeah. I guess
that's a perfect segue to the conversation with Phil Spencer.
Here we go.
That he had on Kind of Funny on the XCast. And there was a lot of things you could take from. We'll keep it to the Redfall stuff first, and then we're going to talk about the other stuff because it's like kind of relevant to the conversation about Redfall. But he talked about how there wasn't really that much that they did for the development of Redfall compared to what they did for Starfield. And Slow-Mo, I know you been dying at the bits to talk about this. Talk about just the Redfall stuff first, and then we'll get into the other stuff after that.
Okay, so Phil Spencer, he did his shout out to Kind of Funny Games. I think they did a decent, more than decent. They did a good interview. They didn't give Phil layups. They asked him really tough questions, and even though I thought they could have been a little bit harder, but they still. They did more than what I think a lot of people would do if they got Phil Spencer on their program. A lot of people would just be like, "Oh, Phil, you're the best." Okay, I just love you, Phil. Instead of like, "Hey, bro, like let's talk about this." So shout out to them for that. In regards to Redfall, Phil Spencer said that internally they did mock reviews, and in these mock reviews, the game rated double digits higher than what its Metacritic score currently is,
which means up more than 10 points higher.
Right, but what we don't know exactly. He that could be
8 or 20 points higher.
20 points higher.
It could be 30 points.
I'll just give him a bit of the points.
He just said double digits.
He said double digits,
which, frankly, everybody that mock reviewed this game needs to go. Like, you need whole new mock reviewers if that's the case, because to be that far off from where it actually landed and what general gaming community sentiment is on the game, you can't be internally that far off that you're surprised that it turned out that way. I quite don't believe that part either with Phil Smith. He said they were shocked that it turned out that way, and I'm just like, bro, you didn't give review codes until like 2 days before the game came out. Your embargo was like 5 seconds before the game launches.
5 seconds.
Like, that is usually like behavior of a publisher that knows the game is coming in hot, knows the game is going to get kind of lambasted for its performance, for its maybe lack of content, just the general state of the game at that time. And yeah, I gotta call BS on that. Like, I don't believe that they didn't know how this was going to turn out. And I understand him apologizing and saying he feels bad, and he's seeing people in the community, and more than anything, this interview told us one thing by a huge like large margin, that Phil Spencer and these executives listen to the things that we say and read the things we say, because he kept referencing things that are narratives and conversations that we have in this community, and he's tuned in. He said he sees the people saying that he should be fired. He's seeing people saying that what they're losing confidence in Xbox based off of Redfall's release, and he feels bad about that. But it's like, you didn't feel bad enough not to release the game though. So like it's just,
and it's not like they haven't been there before.
Absolutely, they have been.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. That's what makes these stories, like, again, like you said, you know, I thought the interview was. I watched it halfway again before we started the podcast, and I watched the full thing earlier, and then I tried to like watch it again just to kind of pick up on some of the tones and stuff. And I think a good portion of it was the things that we've heard before, like, he's sorry it falls on him, it's this and that. But in between a lot of that, there's a lot of candid stuff that he said too, like. You could generally see, like, in his body language, like, like the stuff's taking a toll on him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And but
heavy is
the head, but heavy is the head that wears the crown. But at the same time, it's sort of like, who's like asleep at the wheel, like Slow-Mo said. It's like, who's coming in to do like these mock reviews? Is it like some of these same influencers that we see like in the community who go one way, and then when things get a little rough, they join in, on the fray, but not too much to rock the boat, and then like I see, like I tweeted earlier, like they'll do that, they'll be upset, they'll rock the boat, and they'll go right back out and start doing the same thing again. So is that who you're listening to? And it's like Slow-Mo said, you can definitely tell that they're listening to the community or listening to people saying certain things, but sometimes I wonder if they listen to the wrong people as well. Yeah, like the people that they've given the access to, the people that they follow, the people who have what they consider to be the following that they think is the most hardcore base because they have the most vocal like followers that follow them and listen to what they say. And I would almost caution Phil, maybe shy away from some of those people because they're not doing you any favors, and kind of get into a little bit more grassroots fan base of who, is sort of just speaking to you, because you have like, you have like a fan base that is probably just not feeling that connected. So in a lot of the things that he was saying is sort of like, you feel bad, but it's like, I can't really feel that bad because I've been hearing this sort of thing since 2015. And then I'm watching the timeline and I'm seeing the same exact people again, doing the same exact thing where it's like, thank you, Phil, for speaking to us and talking to us. It's so important that you talk to us because, Sony executives would never. Well, good. I don't need you talking to me like on Twitter. If you're handling these things, you don't need to be out here doing these interviews apologizing because the product speaks for itself.
And to be fair, to be clear, what Eric's talking about when he says listening to other sources in the gaming community, we're not talking about the people that's just like, they don't have an objective bone in their body. Like they're not like the worry trolls. Oh, I'm concerned about Xbox, but you're not really concerned, bro. You just really you kind of monetize and hate on Xbox, which is fine. That's your platform. But I don't think they should listen to you, because once they do, if they did what you said to do, you would just come up with a complete opposite argument on why they're wrong and that why they're still bad. But there are people out here who have constructive criticism and they care about the platform. They want it to be better. So they talk about these things, not in a hey, I'm just gonna have an echo chamber where everybody is always positive about Xbox, and we just gonna pretend like all the negative stuff is all a bunch of people who just hating on the platform, who are frauds and all this other stuff. Like, no, talk about actual people who understand that, like, at some point, like, you need to hear us that really want you to make quality games, and we hear some of the things that you say, and we're like, yo, that ain't it. And I say, and when I'm talking about that ain't it, the whole mentality that Phil Spencer displayed in this interview, where he's like, we're not going, we can't do what Sony and Nintendo do. So having great games, system seller games, is not what we're trying to do, because we can't get out of third place. And I'm like, regardless of whether you think you can get out of third place or not, you should be making the same level of quality games that they're making regardless. Because if you're pushing Game Pass, if you're pushing PC, mobile, the service, this is the gaming video game industry. The foundation of everything should be video games, not Game Pass, not your Xbox, not PC, not the Razer on your mobile phone. It's video games, bro. So like, if you have great games, no matter where you put them, people will get them. You can grow Game Pass as much as you want if you got great content that people want to play. Like, the idea that there's no such thing as system sellers anymore just because this is the digital age. Does Nintendo give a crap about your digital library? No. Nintendo went from a Wii U that sold 13 million units.
Well, we got to remember that they sold crazy with the Wii, over 100 million units. Then they fell from grace and sold 13 million.
I think
that was like a shot in the heart. Like, yo, what?
I think
what
they just
happened?
renamed that thing. They named that thing wrong.
They absolutely named it wrong. It was a failure of marketing. Absolutely,
it wasn't. I don't think it was
planning and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I don't think it was like the system itself. I think it was just the fact that people were literally thinking that was an add-on, and they was like, "Well,
but the
I don't even play my Wii
back
enough
in
now."
2014, they were dead in the water in a joke. I used to listen to podcasts back then, and people were like, "Let's do the Nintendo topic," and everybody would start laughing because they were a joke. But then you made Breath of the Wild. You a joke anymore? No. This sold more than 1-to-1 with the Nintendo Switch. You have great content. People will go buy your platform if the content's there. If you're concerned that, like, oh, well, people aren't going to sell their PS5 because Starfield's an 11 out of 10. Yeah, they're probably not going to sell their PS5, but they might pick up an Xbox. Like, I mean, like that should be your goal then. Let's make it this. If people already are tuned in to this one platform because they got their digital library from a decade ago, starting with the PS4, that's fine. We can still make great content for our Xbox community, and we can make content that's so good that the other communities start looking at their platform like, why aren't you making games like that? And then, hey, maybe they'll just pick up an Xbox for those games, the same way Xbox gamers pick up a PlayStation for PlayStation exclusives, pick up a Switch for Nintendo exclusives. It's like the mindset that, like, we can't compete there, so we're not going to try. I use this last thing, and I'm gonna let y'all rock. It reminds me of in sports where you get a coach that has taken you as far as he can go, and you need someone else to get you across the finish line. Now, whether that means Phil ain't the dude no more, or whether you get someone in that work with Matt Booty and completely divorce Phil from the content creation side of things and let Phil continue to make deals and get acquisitions and interface with Japan. He's great at that stuff, right? And build upon what he's already built with the platform. Great. But like on the game side of things, this is a failure on his part. And unless you want this remain stagnant or it continue to degrade the platform, you gotta make changes here. So I'm done. Go ahead. The
problem is he came out and said all this stuff for everybody to hear, like no chaser at all. So it makes you kind of believe that if he felt that comfortable saying that like he did, how far up is the accountability really going? Is it like at this point, I wouldn't say if I felt that way, that's something I would not say publicly. That's something I would tell my internal teams that this is unacceptable and we can't allow this to keep happening. But for you to actually, and the thing about Phil is I feel like he's honest to a fault, and that's part of the charm of why people really, really like him. But the biggest thing is when he came out and said this stuff, I was like, it almost seems like it doesn't almost sound, it is admitting defeat. Like you're basically telling everybody that we can't compete. But I guess if you go back to, we all thought it was hyperbole, all the stuff they were saying when they were going through all the documents with the CMA and FTC and stuff, talking about, being in third place and everything like that. We thought it was all hyperbole, but maybe this is just truly how they really feel, how they really stand and how they stack up, because they're really not trying to compete with Microsoft or Nintendo when it comes to, deliverables in games and stuff like that. It's painfully honest. I mean, obviously honest at this point, but I wonder how far up that actually goes, because for him to come out and say that publicly, it's I think that's the more jarring thing than anything.
Well, who was Satya talking to? And he was like, let us compete. It's like
facts.
Okay, who are we talking to then? Satya is like, and again, I always kind of look at it like this has nothing to do with necessarily like the games front as we know it. It's about, like we talk like mobile markets and things like that. It's just how does all this service rake in more money for us? And this is why, I talk about the biggest difference between Nintendo, Microsoft, and PlayStation, and a lot of Xbox dudes don't want to hear this, is culture. And culture breeds excitement around your platform. And to me, I feel like they lean too much on the hardcore base and the nostalgia and all that, even to the point in their management. Like a lot of people have been there forever. Like you say, maybe Major Nelson needs to go, and dudes get offended. Like you're talking about throwing their uncle out.
Right.
It's like,
but like people you can't give people a lifetime pass. It's based off of past accomplishments. Like,
right.
Yeah. Like this, if someone was amazed that they did great work for the brand like 5 years ago, love that guy, what he did with this and that. Bonnie Ross, for example, Bonnie Ross did great things for them in years past, but she was killing 343 in Halo. So
we'll look at Jay Raymond. So like Jay Raymond still gets
Jay Raymond is
because she got a credit on Assassin's
She's
Creed,
been living off of Assassin's Creed for over a decade.
So that speaks to the power of Assassin's Creed, honestly.
Yeah, but it's just like, at what point does your current failures come into play? And I've given Matt Booty a lot of smoke recently, especially after the whole Fable thing and Playground Games. But I do kind of wonder now, with Phil Spencer's comments, like how much autonomy does Matt have to do his job? Like, can he tell Playground Games, I said I'm gonna show Fable? Like, I don't care what you just said. I'm showing the game. I'm in charge here. I'm the boss. Right. I'm the captain now. Like I'm showing the game. Okay, it looks great. I'm gonna clean it up. Give you a couple of weeks. We're gonna show something. Yeah. be
Slow-mo,
happy, right? But like,
right.
But
no, your video was like on point with that because when you said that, I was like, again, let's go back to the talk of culture. Everybody hyped up the fact that they said, oh, they're going to be hands off. You know, they got these talented teams. They're going to be hands off. It's like, well, you have the orphanage, but you have nobody like feeding the kids and nobody making sure the kids are taking baths and doing everything else, right? You don't have to tell a studio what kind of game they have to make, which is something that they used to have a problem with in the past. But you still need to have a point person that's like, where is this at? Where is this at? Where is it? How is this coming along? Because that's a part of building the culture for Microsoft, Xbox, the platform.
mm-hmm.
So you need somebody that can say, you know, like you said, we have this showcase coming up. You know, people need to see what we're kind of doing with this. So we want to show this. We need a vertical slice. We didn't tell you what kind of game to make. You had an idea, and if that idea ain't popping, yeah, this isn't going to cut it for what we're trying to build here.
Yeah,
let's see it again. You know what I'm saying? You need people like that. You can't do this thing where, well, come here because you know we'll be hands off. You have full autonomy because you don't know what the hell you're gonna get out of that. You get a Redfall.
I feel like Deli. I feel like you have a different opinion than the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm talking my ass. What do I know about game development?
I mean, I've been very vocal about Microsoft just in general, you know, running a tighter ship. But I really think it's just their communication issues, right? Because you have like stifling creativity is one thing, right? But also not supporting that creativity is also another thing, right? Mm-hmm. I could say, yo, Mo, I'll give you $200 to do whatever you want with DPS, you know, this month, right? And you go spend $200 on employee lunches, and then I'm like, whoa, I thought we were supposed to get some subscribers this month, you know? And it's like, I'm not stifling your creativity, but at the same time, you are not also giving me full transparency and a direction that I also agree with, because you know, when you're fronting the money, you kind of have a certain say in things, right? And while I respect Phil for coming up and saying like, yes, this is all messed up and blah blah, this and that, like, you know, the dude's candid. We respect him. I mean, I've met him in real life. I think he's an absolutely wonderful human being, and I will gladly shill for that man any day. You know, any day of the week. I think he's absolutely wonderful if he's allowed to do everything that he's allowed to do within Xbox. I think that Xbox is going to be moved to very new heights. The problem is the things that he's currently done, you know, I mean, we have to give him his flowers, right? Like he pushed the acquisition forward. He's definitely bidding. He's definitely looking actively for studios and stuff like that. He's definitely looking for talent. He's spending that money to be able to hire talent, this and that. But at the end of the day, I mean, we had that conversation earlier. Talent doesn't mean anything if you have a genuine lack of direction, right? Or if you have a genuine apathy towards development or your products, right? And when he came out and said like, you know, hey, yeah, they found out that the 60 FPS wasn't going to launch in time, it wasn't going to launch properly, like, you know, that I think that says more for the actual communication and the studio than anything else. And even if like Microsoft was technically hands off on Redfall, like somebody's got to have a certain talking to, right? Like whether it be actually Arcane, whether it be, you know, Todd Howard or Bethesda Game Studio in general, like somebody's got to have that conversation with Phil, or Phil's got to have that conversation with somebody, or even Matt Booty, and say like, what is actually going on here, right? Because this isn't some like being hands off is fun and cool when you have a team that is reputable, when you have a team that is able to do that. But when you're constantly buying studios and stuff like that, you have to kind of simulate them into the culture, right? Because not everybody's gonna fit the quote unquote Microsoft culture. And at this point, Microsoft culture isn't really necessarily a singular thing.
But they actually told these studios that that won't happen. You'll keep your culture. We won't assimilate your culture. That the whole limited integration thing that I think it's the pitch they made to these
that pitch is wrong. That pitch is wrong.
Yeah,
you know, you need to have some sort of, I'm not gonna, the way we phrasing this is terrible, control or whatever, but there needs to some sort of oversight, right? Because while
that's why
I
said
love
point person guy,
Arcane,
like a point person, not necessarily telling them what's what, but saying, hey, this is this.
well, you
I
need a
understand the
captain
culture, what
to
we're trying to
steer
do.
the ship. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like if the guy driving, and this happens all the time. I hate analogies, but I'm gonna have to fucking pull one up, right? If the guy driving the car tells me that we're out of gas and we're 50 miles from a gas station, but we're 25 miles from town, and I say, hey, we should drive back to town and get gas. Yeah, we're gonna have to backtrack and revisit scope or whatever. But like that would be the safest bet. And they said, nah, we'll just drive straight until we get a gas station. Trust me on this. Who am I as the non-driver to say, oh, I think you're wrong on that one, right? Like, yes, you can be hands off and you can trust or whatever, but like I said, you have to have some sort of direction. You have to have somebody strong enough. You have to have a good leader, right? And as much as we love Arcane, as much as we love, all of these studios or whatever it may be, the leadership there is not, it's just not cutting it.
So you think it's a Pete Hines issue?
Pete Hines is the CEO of publishing. So I think it's a Todd Howard issue as the CEO of Bethesda Game Studio.
But
I think it's actually more of a Todd Howard thing.
But isn't Arcane Austin under publishing?
Is it
like,
publishing?
Todd,
if it's under
because,
publishing, then it's Pete Hines.
Yeah, because the internal stuff is like Bethesda Game Studios. They have two of those. They have one in Texas, another one out here. Where
they have
in our neck of the
Rockville,
woods,
Maryland. Yeah,
right. So that's Todd Howard. Pete Hines would be everyone that works with Arcane, its software, Machine Games, Tango, all those people. Which, I mean,
so if Pete Hines runs the actual publishing company, so it would be Pete Hines' thing. And if Pete Hines comes in and says, how's Redfall looking, and then comes back 2 months later, was like, hey, how we looking on Redfall? That's just not enough, brother. Like, I know you're busy and I know you got things to do, but it's a business, not a soup kitchen. And if business isn't good, like somebody's got to be blamed for it. And I'm not going to blame the guy actually making the art assets and working 40 hours a week. I'm going to blame the guy that's sitting in his office looking at emails and supposed to be flying across the country to do studio visits. You know what I mean?
Right. Now, Deli, shouldn't the producer be reaching out to Pete Hines though, and just that's what
I'm telling you right now. Like there needs to be a lot going on, and whether it be production or scheduling, or there's definitely something going on, and there needs to be somebody to answer for that. And again, whether it be production, studio leads, or whatever, somebody's got to do it. And I promise you, it's not the guy making the art assets.
Now, to be fair to Pete Hines and potential other Bethesda producers that have been acquired in this acquisition, had it been disseminated to them that their games need to make sure that the standard is 60 frames per second, because that's literally what Aaron Greenberg of Xbox said all of our first party games would have that option. And so if that's and as Phil Spencer said earlier today about what their internal process is supposed to be working towards, as that's what they view as levels of quality that they're supposed to be delivering to us, was that information that was given to ZeniMax Media's umbrella? Because if it wasn't, then that's a failure again, as Deli's saying, a failure of communication from Xbox to ZeniMax. So it's like we don't quite know where the internal process broke down, as Phil Spencer kept talking about. But if you're talking about our internal process failed, we got to revisit it. And I heard them say the same thing when they allowed Halo Infinite to be seen the way it was, with Craig Face and Poppin and the draw distance of the grass. The grass is literally growing up under the tires of the Warthog as it passed it. And I'm like, y'all said y'all was going to revisit this 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And here we are dealing with the same things. Like, do you need to just completely overhaul or replace the internal process, whatever that is? Or what? Because, like, I mean, I actually kind of wished, kind of funny, one of the people there would have kind of dived in when he mentioned that. So what is the internal process?
Well, because whatever it is currently, it's not working.
It's broken. Yeah.
It's just simply not working. And, I just, like I said, nobody is looking to make bad products. Nobody's looking to sabotage anything, right? Like I'm not going to waste 4 years. I've said this publicly. I'm not going to waste 4 years of my life to sabotage something. Like, do you know how big of a waste of time that would be to purposely make a bad product just so I can get harassed on the internet? No, it's not. It's just not in my prerogative, right?
Right.
But something, like I said, something needs to desperately happen because, and I'll say it all the time, like whether it be communication or something, like we need to have, or they need to have like a unifying vision, whether it be pushing narrative games forward. Like the competitors are doing it, man. I'm sorry, the competitors are doing it. The PlayStation say we want to push the boundaries on narrative focused games. Nintendo says we want to make games that are fun, that can run on old hardware that is able to give you the flexibility and form factor of handheld. And you know what? They're doing it. And I understand that if you make every game great, then there's going to be or if you make every game good, there's not going to be great games, right? But you need games, you need products, and you can't keep selling subscription services and expecting people to latch onto that and say like, oh yeah, this is enough for me. Like, it's not. I'm sorry, it is not enough. Like, subscription services are not enough for me. I bought Redfall at $70, right? And I don't care, but that doesn't mean that somebody who worked overtime to buy Redfall at $70 also doesn't care. They're getting home from a long work week going, oh, I can't wait for this game. It's one of the most anticipated games of the year. And then they, get into a game that doesn't work, that runs below 30 FPS, that stutters all the time, hitches and freezes. Like, you have to be seriously kidding me, right? Like, this is unacceptable. And that conversation needs to happen. And whether or not it happens once a year or twice a year, I don't care. It needs to happen more often.
Good points.
Mm-hmm.
Forte was definitely eating. Did you see this guy? He was licking his lips. His mouth was all moving and whatnot.
I was drinking a Pepsi.
So you had to turn your camera off to drink a Pepsi?
No, I walked away.
That's actually a Coke too.
I walked away to go.
It's way better than Pepsi. How dare you mislabel it? Good grief.
Oh yeah, dang, Coke.
Y'all gonna lose our sponsorship, man.
I walked away to go get the Coke. That's what I cut the camera off for.
Oh, and you didn't bring us back any?
Ooh, man, that's a good Coke, and I'm burping.
That's tough.
You burping that burger you just ate. Can you not do that? I apologize for the unprofessional nature of our host tonight.
Coke is a good thing, and I like.
I'm just saying that, like, stifling creativity is a pretty broad term, right? Like, oh yeah, we can just let them do whatever they want. But at a time, like, you got to crack down on it just a little bit, So I hope that things are fixed moving forward. But how many times can somebody say that in a year or in 2 years or in a decade or in a console generation? Because we said it all the time in Xbox One. I played Titanfall on the original Xbox One, and I knew exactly that I was not going to buy this system. That was a fact. I said, I'm buying a PlayStation 4. And guess what? I came home with a PlayStation 4 the next day.
I don't know. Like I said, man, for me, through the OG, the 360, up until like the mid to end, like, and B, you might have tested this too. Like, I felt like they spoke to me. I don't feel like they've spoken to me since the like mid to end of 360 and going through the Xbox One. They had a couple things in Xbox One that I was in that I dug, but it's just as far as I don't know what some cats see. And hey, that's not me saying you shouldn't prefer a platform or be cool with it. Some people just rock. That's where they like to be. They like the controller. They like the ecosystem, and Phil touched on that too. And the ecosystem thing is huge. We've been saying that on podcasts, but as a gaming consumer and excitement culture, the whole nine, like, I don't feel like they've talked to me for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been saying the same thing. I think, at the beginning of the Xbox One generation, there were a few things that, kind of got you excited, and you kind of hope, that they would continue to build on that, once they, started the Recores and, the games like that, Quantum Break and things like that. It's like, okay,
right.
I can kind of see where we're heading, and then it kind of just fell off from there. And, the quality just wasn't up to par, and, they weren't delivering games. And, you start to look, at different platforms to see what's going on. And, you know, they had stuff that was compelling, whether it's Nintendo Switch or PlayStation 4 at the time. You know what I mean? It was, you know, they garner more attention because, you know, for me, Xbox just wasn't delivering. And from that point, I don't think they have. You know, we've talked about this. They've been struggling for almost 10 years now, you know,
Right.
to kind of really, you know, develop IP, you know, bring us something new, give us something to be excited about. You know, they've really leaned on the three major pillars of Xbox, which is, you know, Halo, Gears, and Forza. And you think that they would be at that point now where, you know, we're going to start seeing some new IPs and, you know, just some bigger stuff to kind of be excited about. And, you know, we get to this point where Redfall, you know, kind of stumbles out of the gate, and it's like, here we go again. You know what I mean? Like, how can you, you know, continue to have faith and build, you know, put trust into this brand where, you know, they continue to do the same thing over and over again, and it's the same apologies over and over again. And
Right.
And you know, we'll do better, that. and next year it'll be better, and it's the same thing for, you know, for the last 5 years or so.
You can tell he hears all of us say this, and he acknowledged that, because he was like, I know you guys have heard me say this before, and probably or think I'm just giving lip service, to just, you know, believe it when you pick up the controller and you can play it for yourself. Which, frankly, we don't trust you no more, Phil. You've been saying the same thing for years. And frankly, we need you to show us that these games are going to be great. Stop telling us they will be, and then we get Redfall, or then we get incomplete Halo Infinite, or incomplete Sea of Thieves, or buggy State of Decay 2. We show us. And he mentioned Hellblade 2. And like the way he mentioned it, it seemed like it might actually be something that we're going to see at the June showcase. It might turn out to be something that comes out later this year. I wish they would have pushed a little bit harder on this, but they said, are we going to know further in advance
about 60 frames per second?
About 60 frames per second, and that sounds like something else that we will know in regards to Starfield at their Starfield Direct showcase right after the June showcase. That's fine, but I think if it's definitely going to be 60 frames per second, I would have preferred the Phil would be like, it's going to be 60.
Right.
Like, actually say if it's going to be that. If not, we'll let you know definitively months in advance instead of a few weeks before the game comes out. Because if it turns out that's 30, again, that goes back to Xbox gamers feeling like they're being treated as second-class citizens, and they're not being treated the same as the PC community.
I laughed. I won't say I laughed. I laughed ironically when I saw like Xbox gamers, or I should say, I always say the Xbox dudes, because I look at them as being like the most hardcore vocal, who say the crazy shit and they just acquiesce to everything, you know. And that's what I think a lot of why we are where we are, is because these dudes acquiesce to everything. Because Phil's a gamer, he listens to us, this and that, and I'm like, okay, that's all well and good, but the reason I feel like a lot of you cats go at everybody else is because you truly aren't happy. Because if you truly are happy, there is nothing anybody can say to you that would rattle you. You know, and that's how I look at it. And then looking at Phil today, I'm sort of like, again, Beal attested to this. Early days of Brap, like before we met you, Forte, before we met you, Slow Mo, we were saying these guys are in the show me state. Right?
Yeah, that's
remember
true.
that, B?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
And what else were we saying, B? They don't seem to care about console. It feels like it's second-class citizen stuff. And dudes were telling us to be quiet. You guys don't know what you're talking about. There's plenty of stuff to play out here right now. I don't know what you're talking about. The games are coming. What are you talking about? And then it kept being wait till E3, wait till E3, wait till... We were saying this stuff 5-6 years ago. So I'm sitting back looking at it like, oh, now you feel like a second-class citizen? They've been showing you, you know, for a long time who they are. Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you the first time who they are, believe them. Nothing has changed except the fact that you guys acquiesce to everything. Now it's about Game Pass. It's not even about the games anymore. It's a Game Pass. Right? Game Pass is the platform, and it seems like Game Pass is more important than actual games. Propping up Game Pass. Game Pass is the future of games. No, Game Pass is the future of Xbox gaming. The rest of the industry hasn't decided on what that is yet.
Yeah. And also making great games doesn't mean that you're going back to a console like atmosphere. Like making awesome games that rival what your competitors are doing, it doesn't matter what your platform is. You could be playing those games through PC, through mobile. You can have it on Game Pass at launch. People will subscribe to play those games because those games are great. Like, I don't understand the mentality and the people automatically jumping on to what Phil Spencer said. Like, yeah, we're past the console. No, we talked about great games, man. Games that actually rival what your competitors are doing. And he's saying we can't do that because we're not caring about the console no more. Well, so what? Don't care about the console, but still make awesome games, man. Like those are two different things. And I think he kind of pivoted in the interview towards that, and he even started mentioning PlayStation and Sony when that wasn't even what the question was about.
Yeah,
the question wasn't even about
like how it goes on the timelines on Twitter. And that's why I keep saying to cats, they go, well, you just hate Xbox and you're just a pony. Okay, if that is true, again, what does any of that have to do with the state of Xbox right now? You see cats like, Phil did this great interview and, you wouldn't see Jim Ryan. What does Jim Ryan have to do with the state of Xbox right now? Well, Jim was trying to trip up ABK. What does that have to do with the state of Xbox and anything Phil's saying right now? This man even mentioned the fact that he's like, well, if I'm still here, like he's even thinking, oh shit.
Part of me feels there's one thing that I wrote it down too when he said it at the beginning. When he was talking about the ABK deal when he first started, he alluded to, where is it? Oh, it's right here. He alluded to the fact that with the strategy of Activision Blizzard, like the strategy wasn't their strategy wasn't just to get Activision Blizzard. It's like that wasn't the strategy, but getting that acquisition would accelerate what their strategy was. And part of me feels like, as much as I don't think Xbox is like going to go anywhere, I do think that there's probably some type of mandate that was around like the amount of money that it's going to take for Microsoft to be able to maintain and want to maintain Xbox. And I think the ABK deal was going to be a quick resolution to be able to have it fund itself, because just those IPs and just that infusion of revenue that they would get from the mobile side, plus what's going on with PC and Blizzard.
You can see how important it was, Forte.
That's how important it really was to them. So yes, they do have a money hat when it comes to Microsoft backing them, but who knows? That money might have been given to them, or basically, awarded to them basically so they can be self-sufficient inside of the Microsoft ecosystem, because you cover up a lot of holes when you bringing in billions of dollars of revenue every year. Activision Blizzard can cover up a lot of mistakes that Xbox makes as a whole by just having those things in there. So I found it really interesting when he said that. He was like, it wasn't the goal, but it will accelerate their goal faster. And that just sounds like the ability to be self-sustained on their own and not have to rely on having to go to Microsoft to get everything. Because as of right now, that's kind of how it is. If Microsoft's not funding it and giving them, and I mean, it sounds weird when you say, well, Microsoft owns them, so they, of course, they're funding it, but they're funding the division where, like, think about it. PlayStation funds itself. Like, yes, it's under Sony, but PlayStation contributes more money to Sony than Sony contributes to itself when it comes to all their other different things. And I think that's where Microsoft kind of want to see Xbox at least get to So it might be something behind the scenes that we don't know about that is being said behind closed doors. Like, hey, this is just an infusion of cash just to get you guys up and running where you at, but you got to at some point become self-sufficient on your own. Not saying that we're not going to come out and, you know, back you when we need to, but we're not going to just keep money hat and everything just to money hat it. And I think Activision Blizzard was kind of their way of solidifying themselves a little bit more.
Well, fortunately, I've long, you know, speculated and felt, and I think I've talked to you guys about this before. Like, if you have, I know, you know, people say, well, Phil convinced, you know, Satya to, you know, he saved Xbox, he convinced Satya to keep Xbox on and the whole nine. And a lot of that could be true, but I've always kind of wondered how that conversation went. And I kind of, me personally, we don't know for sure, but I kind of feel that when Satya is saying that he's not a gamer per se, he doesn't really understand the world of gaming, but he understands services, he understands what it could mean for. So I always kind of thought he looked across that field and said, you know, that little box project you guys have been doing for a while is cute, but how does it fit what we do?
Right.
And that's the pivot point where it was like, how do we turn this platform? Because in Slow-Mo, you said a long time ago, and we've been saying it, you know, it's funny how dudes will say, well, it's not about the console. And then they go, but then we feel like second-class citizens on the console. And it's like, for a long time now, Xbox has just been the platform. They haven't cared about that box for a long time.
Right.
And you're seeing that shift and that change that goes into this being the platform.
How long has DVR been broken on the Xbox Series consoles?
Right.
Yeah.
And what's hilarious about the console, what's hilarious about the console part of it is, you know, and I kind of look at Microsoft as being like a jack of all trades and a master of none when it comes to Xbox in particular. It's like, who are we really servicing? Like, what goes on? So it's like, well, we listen to the hardcore. They didn't like the fact that we lost the power narrative of the PlayStation. So we really need to play into that. Let's make the most powerful console, right? And then it's like you went to, before you even had any games that really demonstrated what this thing is supposed to do, you move people on to the next form of hardware. Right. And it's like the monster that eats monsters. And then people got around that. It's like, this thing is going to destroy. It's the monster that eats monsters. And then you came with the little cousin, the S. And all of a sudden, all these power dudes, when the little man showed, it was like, that's the one. It's like, wait a minute, y'all the power dudes. How you come back to this guy? It's like, again, what's the direction? What's the message? It's all about PC? Is it about some of the consoles? Is it about maybe some games here? Maybe some mobile? Maybe some this? Maybe some that? And it's like, that again, that's all culture. You need to tighten all that part of it up.
Right. So with that being said, let's, you know, it's a lot of stuff to just dial back. And we'll be talking about this over the course of the next weeks and months, you know, especially
a lot.
Especially until we get to, you know, the Xbox Showcase, which is a whole nother can of worms that we're going to have to deal with over the course of the next couple of months. But with that being said, I do want to get to the last topic, just talking about what is the expectation and how much pressure is going to be put on a game like Starfield due to all of the stuff that's been happening over the course of the last 3 weeks with the blocking of the CMA, with Redfall coming out, with Phil Spencer coming out saying the things that he said about, you know, other platforms and where their place is inside that ecosystem. How much pressure is actually going to be on Todd Howard and Starfield and at this showcase that's coming up next month? Floor is open to anybody.
They can't skip leg day. Starfield cannot skip leg day. Because that Joker got a lot of weight to lift.
There's a lot of pressure on Starfield, and I think it's I feel bad for the people that, you know, that work at BGS, because I mean, before it used to be, you know, you'll make a Fallout, you'll make a Elder Scrolls game, and sure, it's buggy, sure it performs horribly, and sure the faces look terrible and all that stuff, but you know, when it comes down to it, you got your community that loves that game, and you got your community that rocks with it. You got your PC community that's going to make mods that are going to fix everything and then add new stuff, and you're going to drop a game that you know you have a built-in community base that's going to support it and buffer it, and everything's going to be great. And now, midway through development, now this needs to be the one. Halo couldn't be the one. Now it's got to be you in this game to prop up an entire platform and compare and be competing against Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2, Hogwarts Legacy. You know, now you're competing against the best games that have come out this year, and that's a lot of added pressure. And potentially, like, even though he alluded to this, he said that they got to Starfield a little bit earlier and been paying attention to Starfield. So now you're like, you're trying to implement features of the console that you didn't care about in pre-production, but now you got to care about these things. You know, there's a lot going on to that, and a lot of pressure and crunch and extreme crunch and, you know, stuff that developers don't care to be having to deal with in the first place. It's a lot of pressure there, man, but it's just not just them. It's on everyone. It's all of them. Like, if you're freaking Compulsion Games and you still haven't shown your game yet, the longer you don't show your game, the more pressure there is for you to finally show it. You got acquired in 2018, and 5 years later, you still ain't shown a game yet? That thing better look fire. It better blow my mind when you finally show it, because if it looks like Redfall, people going to be highly upset. Everyone's got that pressure. Fable, you showed us a teaser trailer of some fairy getting ate by a frog. I want to see kicking chickens. Okay,
You know?
I want to see Fable. You better be showing me some good Fable out here, right? And look, I've talked to a few people that said that Fable looks great. I hope it looks great. I can't wait to see it, you know. But it's gotta live up to expectations. And these are the same pressures that the other platforms deal with. Nintendo never showed us Metroid Prime 4. It didn't live up to expectations. They canceled that thing, gave it back to Retro, apologized to everybody. Sorry, we made a mistake. The people we gave that to, they trash. But we gave it back to the real Metroid Prime people. It's gonna come. Knights of the Old Republic. They gave that game to Aspire, a port studio for mobile games. They showed that first build. You know what, Aspire? We appreciate the effort that you gave us, but we're going to need you to just not do anything else. How about you just stop all production right now? Just stop everything. And we're going to go in a completely different direction. My way, Sumo Digital's working with you guys, right? Yeah. Call Sumo Digital up, because, yeah, they're now the main developer, because you suck. And we're not going to have you do this any further. Like, I'm pretty sure they don't say it like that.
I think I prefer if we got radio silence until we saw something that was ready. Personal opinion. I know that the pressure is still there, but I feel like at this point, with the state of AAA gaming and just gaming in general, right? Let's all take a step back and let's just give you guys, you know, some breathing room or whatever, and just, you know, show it when it's ready. That, to me, that's more important, because, you know, when we have games that are shown when they're ready, we have so much gameplay. They're so confident, and review embargoes aren't 2 hours before the game launches. You know, like we need that kind of confidence back.
I mean, I agree with that. I'm not telling them to show us something that isn't ready, but I'm not telling them to go do a Watch Dogs 1 or the Division 1 where they showed a vertical slice of stuff that they didn't know whether it could actually be possible on the current platforms. It turned out it wasn't. So people, when they finally got the final product, people were disappointed. I'm not telling them to do one of those deals, but I'm talking like when it is ready, and then clearly, like when it comes to, like, say, Fable, like maybe Playground Games doesn't feel that way, but Matt Booty felt it was ready. So it's just like, if you feel it's ready, show it off. But like, the pressure is absolutely there for their games to level up, in a sense. You know, like you people are waiting for them to compete on a different level and to blow their mind away, like, this is what I bought my Xbox for, kind of feeling. And I don't think they quite have that yet right now.
No, I don't think they have, and I think that there's too many things in the oven cooking. The problem is that you can only really promise so much before people start to get impatient, right? Because if I mean I don't have a Series X, and I would like to get a Series S. I play most of my Xbox games on the PC, but to what's it called? To have the promise of something coming along and say, yeah, this is really going to challenge expectations. This is really going to push things forward. And then it's like the year after that and the year after that. And, obviously nobody expected the pandemic to come into early access. You know what I mean? But, outside of that, I mean, we're several years, or at least we're a year outside of that now, out of the mainstay thing. It's like we have to have something. And it's like you can't keep showing us things, or you can't keep announcing stuff and then saying, "Oh yeah, it'll be here," and then same thing like Metroid Prime. Like that thing was announced like almost 7 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like at what point is it just promises and promises and promises? Because Phil knows, we all know, the internet knows. Like you can't keep saying, "Yeah, Contraband's coming." Yeah, this game's coming. This game's coming. We're gonna deliver great games. And it's like, bro, it's been 4 years, 3 years. It's going on the 4th year here shortly. I say shortly as we have 7 months left in the month. But I mean, if what's actually slated is slated and concrete, which is what? Starfield?
Yeah.
Right? Starfield for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
Then what
For
else?
now, yeah.
For now.
Yeah, I mean that could change, by July, but for now,
he did go over the whole thing about what it takes to delay a game, and Starfield falls in that category. They definitely should.
Yeah. Although I don't think they're delaying Starfield. I think that's
But I'm saying like if we have Starfield coming out, sorry for saying, if we have Starfield coming out, and that's the only thing coming out slated concretely, it's going to be 4 years before we get the promise of a big game, right? Like we're actually going to get reward for the promises of a big game. Because, while Starfield is actually the big game, it's not the other big games that they're promising, right? Because they launched they announced, not launched, they announced and teased like 7 or 8 games several years ago.
Yes.
And it's like, if we get those games at 2025, 2026, right? What else do we have to look forward to if those even come out 2025, 2026? But right now, all we have is Starfield, and that was already promised. So we're actually really just cashing in on what was already promised. What else? What about the other 90% of the slate? And if you guys don't give us that in the next year or 2 years, I mean, it's going to be really, really tough to keep saying like, keep waiting, guys, keep waiting. The Series X is going to pay off. Series X is not a cheap investment. That was $499, my boy. You know what I mean?
I also think they cannot do the approach they did last year with their June showcase, where they only showed what was supposed to come out for the next 12 months. I think that turned out to be I wouldn't say a disaster, but it definitely it was not well received when they did it, because people had expectations of things much grander, and also the majority of your own games didn't come out in that window. So just don't do that again. Just if you follow the typical schedule of, give you a teaser trailer, or we announce it, we reveal the game. The next time you show it with gameplay. The next time you show it, it's you're doing a build up. Hey, let's deep dive into these systems, the skill trees, the weapons, the story, the blah 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 blah. Then you release the game. I'm not saying that's easy at all. I'm not. I know I said it like it might be easy, but it's not easy, clearly. But
of course,
right.
But like, at some point, you need to be getting these games to that point where you can be showing us gameplay of the games that we're going to see. And I think for like that Avalanche Studios game, Contraband, they probably could have just held that off. Like, because I still don't know what that is. They showed a 30-second trailer of a garage, and I was just like,
yeah,
what?
Sorry, I'm gonna answer something in chat. Pixel Slapper, like, didn't you say you don't have an Xbox Series X? I don't. I don't have a Series X, but what I'm saying is that's not a cheap investment. And if you made it a $4.99 investment to play Starfield, like I know a lot of people are going to do that, but like if you genuinely make a $4.99 investment to play Starfield later this year, if it's coming out later this year, right? As far as I know, I believe that it's coming out later this year. If you made that investment in 2020, then what do you got, bro? Like genuinely, what do you have, right? Like if you keep getting promises over and over again, and you know, this is not like a new take. This is a lukewarm take. Microsoft keeps promising stuff, but like, you know, what do you have? And if again, if you don't launch stuff in the next 2 years, you know, let's say 10 games, you announce 10 games. It's a nice, easy round number, right? If you tease 10 whole games and you don't launch them within the next couple of years, then that interest is going to dwindle very quickly if it already hasn't, right? Because I mean, we've talked about this on the show plenty of times, like, hey, what's the window for Fable? What's the window for this game? And I'm like, you know, from what their hiring looks like, I mean, it looks like 2 years out, and that was a year ago. So if it doesn't come out next year, then I'm going to be like, dang, bro, 2025 Fable. And I've already said this, like, I think Fable's coming out 2025. You know, I think it's going to come out early 2025 or late 2024. But if we don't hear anything about it within the next year, I mean, it's going to look kind of tough.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I always mention when we talk about these shows is that I don't need the teaser trailer, especially if the game is going to be 3 or 4 years out. I would much rather you show me the game when it's ready. Show me the gameplay. And if it's a year, you know, year out, year and a half out, I'm cool with that. But to straddle me along, you know what I mean? They showed Fable like 4 or 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, where is it? Why are we doing this? You know what I mean? Like, when they showed us that, I mentioned it then. We didn't need that trailer. We didn't need the teaser trailer. If they just want to announce that Fable was in development, they could have did that without that.
Yeah, they could have used a screen, a JPEG. You say, hey, like Fable's in
They could have
development.
did what Obsidian did.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And they've done that over the years. Where what is Everwild? Like, what is Rare doing with that game? They showed us the game twice, and we haven't had any updates of what the game actually is, what we should expect from the game, when it's even coming out. You know what I mean? So like, things like that is something I don't need to get me hyped up about gaming. You know what I mean? I would much rather you show me a game when it's about to come out. Give me hyped up, you know what I mean, a year out, have, you know, something to look forward to. And then when it releases, you know, we pick it up and play it. But with this elongated, you know, build up to the game, we're waiting 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. You know what I mean? It's gonna be an intergeneration. We're gonna be looking to get new consoles in the next 2 years. You know what I mean? Is what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? We'll have those rumbles of, you know, new consoles coming out, and you know they haven't delivered on the games that they announced already.
Yeah. Well,
I think that goes back to what Deli was saying about the pipeline, you know, and making sure that you got people that are in place to make sure that content is flowing, and that, you know, communication studios are getting the resources and help that they need in a timely manner, and not like you find out too late that this game is not going to be 60 frames per second, but you know, now it's like the game's going to be launched without it because this is information that you didn't know at a time when it would have been beneficial to make sure it would be ready by launch. You know, it's unfortunate, but like I still kind of lean on the fact that like I'll be on the island by myself with this, but like you may need to get a Steve Kerr. You might need to go put Mark Jackson on the bench and get Steve Kerr to take you to the promised land. Thank you, Mark. You got us into the playoffs 3 years in a row, and we haven't made the playoffs in 2 decades. We appreciate you for that. That's it. Steve Kerr's gonna get us 4 championships.
What's they drafted all the players too?
Sure did. Drafted all the players.
Mark Jackson drafted all the players.
He had the blueprint. Except when he went into the playoffs and he couldn't coach worth a lick against the other coaches. That's where Steve Kerr.
I will say that Steph Curry did have bum ankles during his tenure.
He did.
I mean, we getting into the weeds.
Those
ankles.
Those
very surface level, level analogy. You getting into the micro, man.
No, but listen, those ankles got a lot better when Steve Kerr got there. Let's be real. Because those ankles were real flat.
I'm just saying, ain't no Warriors fans, crying for Mark Jackson right now. They like, thank you, Steve. Like, we appreciate you, Steve. So look, I feel like
you, Steph Curry, and your ankles still standing up.
Look, I'm saying I think that they could look at potentially putting someone at the same level as Phil. If you don't want to look like Phil's great at acquisition stuff and building relationships and things. We think, I don't know what happened with Square Enix, but like put someone on the content side of things. Work with Matt Booty or maybe replace Matt Booty. Who the heck knows? Something has to be fixed in regards to this kind of stuff so that the issues that happen with Redfall don't happen anymore. We just don't see these issues happening as frequently as they do on other platforms, as they do for Xbox. So
yeah,
Matt, just fix the problem.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm done.
Well, I was saying, Mav, there really isn't any reason not to believe Phil Spencer. Like I think he's a great person. I think he's absolutely charismatic, hilarious, genuine, and I think he really, really cares about the brand. And of course, I think he's made a lot of leeway with the brand itself too, pulling it out of a hole. But there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm glad that he recognizes. I'm glad that conversation has been slid across his desk. But yeah, like I said, if Starfield is genuinely concrete and it's coming out this year, which again I believe it to be, I don't think the deadline could be moved anymore. If it comes out this year, then yeah, this is great, and we'll revisit and we'll have this conversation again. Like, hey, is there 2023? All right, and then we'll have the same conversation next year when they give us a roadmap, or if they give us another roadmap, right? Because I think the 12-month thing that he said, I think that was information that at the time Todd Howard, Pete Hines, and everybody gave him. And they said, yeah, this can definitely launch in 12 months. And then, of course, we found out that with Redfall, like that information that they had, that they gave, wasn't really indicative of the actual state of the game. And then, when you promise something that big, because Phil put all of his trust and faith into his studios, into his cohorts and peers. And then next thing you know, you find out that, Todd Howard or Pete Hines comes up and says, yo, you remember what we told you about shipping 12 months ago? Yeah, like it's not looking too hot. Phil's already came out and said what he said. He can't take it back. Right. So maybe hopefully he has, he does a little bit more studio visits. He has a little bit more concrete information, and he holds these studios accountable, and he has those stern talks with those managers, with those production people that says, hey, we can't have this issue again, because it's not, it can't happen. It shouldn't happen.
But I mean, is that really Phil's job? That should be Pete Hines.
It's not Phil's job, but you know what I mean. Somebody's got to be doing it.
Number 5 and on the Xbox Game Studio side, Matt Booty's position at this point. And it's
of course. Matt Booty needs to get behind Phil and help him out, because Phil is taking all of the flack right now.
True.
Yeah, he's taking all of it. And the last thing, I just think that I feel like with Phil, now that he's come out and said all these things, I feel like the scrutiny is going to be even more severe if Xbox and Microsoft, or Xbox in general, keeps going in this direction. So I think now you have it's like Phil Spencer always has the interviews where you have these focal points of things that he say. I think this is the one that's going to stick the longest, because he pretty much admitted everything that's going on with the company and all the failings and why they're failing and how they're not able to compete. And he said they need to do better. And he said that's not on Sony, that's not on Nintendo, that's on Xbox, that's on Microsoft, that's on them. So now the question is, what are you going to do to fix it? And that's ultimately what's going to come down to. But with that being
said, I think that's why the pressure isn't as bad on Starfield than it is.
I think it's a
on-
Microsoft pressure. It's not a
Yeah,
Starfield.
Yeah, I don't think Starfield. I don't think Starfield has any pressure at all.
Yeah,
to
that's why I
perform.
don't either.
I think it's gonna come out fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I think the pressure is more on the showcase and more on Microsoft to show and prove that they can deliver quality content, and
Yep.
not specifically on Starfield.
Yep, I agree with that. I think if Starfield may be the next game that bears the brunt of what the Metacritic score and all of the what everybody talks about, but I don't think X is not going to make or break Xbox. What's going to make or break Xbox is if Xbox doesn't do what they need to do to start bringing more people into the ecosystem and giving people more games to play and start talking about these games that they've been talking about since 2017. And I think that starts this June. And we always say they can't hold back. They gotta let it all cut out. Just don't do stupid things like announce stuff that's coming in the next 12 months and then it don't happen. And don't even use the word 12 months anymore. So I think with that, it's that's pretty much the blueprint that they need to follow. But guys, amazing show.
Absolutely awesome show.
Yeah, awesome show. And first of all, I appreciate the over 63 people that showed up to the show. Really, really appreciate you guys. The chat was very civil for the type of conversations we were having. Really appreciate all that. And with everything, please just hit the like button. If you want to hit the join button to become a 10%er, that's also great too. We always have fun over here on the DPS channel. But with that being said, I do want to get our guest up out of here because we are coming up on the midnight hour. First, the homie Deli. Please, brother, I appreciate you for always coming through, man. Your knowledge in game development and everything is always amazing. And I cannot ask for a better friend to be in this community, man. So will you please tell everybody where they can find you and what's going on with you?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, thank you for having me back on DPS. You and Mo are absolutely fantastic hosts, and of course, it's always nice to be able to hang out with B Money and Eric again, and of course, be able to answer and talk and chill with anybody in chat. So that's a whole lot of fun. My name is Deli. I'm a AAA game developer, formerly at Ubisoft, formerly at Microsoft. And I mean, I'm working on something down the road, but I'm not gonna be too quick to announce just quite yet. So hopefully, fingers crossed. I'll be able to announce it sometime this month, and I think it'll be a whole lot of fun. And if I'm able to actually announce it, then I think some of the things I said tonight are going to come true. So let's just hope that that things go well. So yeah, so I really appreciate it. Again, I really appreciate everything and everybody. So yeah, just hang out with me on Twitter. Hang out, yeah. Go ahead, hang out on Twitter.
I'll wait till after the stream to speculate. I'll wait till later. I don't want to ruin anything.
And please follow Agent Deli on Twitter. Just put all this stuff in the chat. So
if I missed any questions or anything, like please please send it to me on Twitter because I love interacting with you guys, and it's a blessing every single day to be able to do so.
Yep, appreciate you, bro. Next, the man with the beautiful beard, the man that is always. He's not the one that ducks people to play games. That's left for another person on another occasion. But B Money, really appreciate you coming through, man. BB knowing everything. We ain't gonna. This is actually probably the first show we did where we didn't get some type of juicy tidbit out of you. Is there anything that you want to throw out there in the ether that we could be looking forward to from any of these platforms in the future, sir?
Yeah, Mr. B knowing stuff. 101.
And let people know where they can find you at too. On top of that,
yeah, I posted a little something on Twitter earlier today. Not too crazy, but if what I'm hearing is true, then the long awaited Sony news and PlayStation news will be coming pretty soon, and people should be pretty excited about that. So, definitely looking forward to that. And if I get a few more tidbits, I'll definitely sprinkle those on Twitter. So you can definitely look out for that. But you can follow me everywhere, same name, B Money 101. You can find me on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, all those great places.
We gotta do Battlefield, man. We gotta do Battlefield, man. I know we keep saying it, but it's like, you look, just tell me when, and I'm there.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I've definitely been on Battlefield, man. The new season
tell me when
is
you're
crazy.
over there, bro. I'm over there with you.
Yeah. It's been a great time. I'm loving what Vince and the team have done to kind of revitalize what Battlefield is, and the future is looking bright. For Battlefield and just Respawn in general. They're doing a lot of great things over there. So salute to them. It was great conversation tonight with some great fellas. So appreciate you guys having me, and I'll see you next time.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Once again, his stuff is in the chat, so follow him too. Eric Jackson, the voice of reason. Man, we got to get you out of Florida, man. We got to get you out of there. It's getting toxic down there, bro. But please let everybody know where they can find you. Once again, another amazing a guest that we always have on this show. You guys are amazing, and I can't wait to have you guys back again. Let everybody know where they can find you, bro.
Yeah, man. Thanks again for having me. Great show, great panel. Love chopping it up with you guys. Great chat. Everybody kept it popping tonight, man. Good questions, good back and forth. Everybody kept it pretty civil, which is cool, but I wouldn't expect anything less on the DPS podcast. But other than that, man, you can find me on Twitter, EC Jackson with an X, just putting out stupid, goofy tweets, trying to make people laugh, stuff like that. But yeah. And EC Jackson everywhere else, PlayStation, Xbox. I don't know the serial code number for my Switch. It's on my not that you don't even play multiplayer on that thing anyway. It don't really matter. But
basically, just look and see how many hours people play games.
That's pretty much it. It's just a voyeur console,
Right.
So, but thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it for real.
And before I go into our last person, I do want to read off the member chats, and I'm going to give my amazing co-host a chance to pull his up.
I'm already there. Bam, I beat you.
Bam. Well, you know what? There it is then. So you know what? The amazing co-host, the man, the myth, the man of many legends, he actually put a video out today. Please go check that video out because he was on fire, and I really appreciate his candidness and his amazing opinion on what happened and what he thinks is going on.
Please watch it with an open mind, okay?
Yeah, please don't get mad because the man might hurt your feelings or something like that. It's okay. It's just plastic. But
right.
Yeah, Slow-Mo, as always, man, you bring an amazing viewpoint to everything that we talk about in these podcasts, and I love doing this with you. 131 episodes in, still going, and I appreciate you. So please let everybody know where they can find you, what you got going on next, and read off your channel members to everybody.
I'm probably going to drop a follow-up video now that I got the upload video bug. So you might see another one this weekend. It all depends on scheduling and my time and scheduling with kids, family, all that other good stuff. If not, you'll see me on lunchtime with Slow-Mo. We'll be chopping up as usual. But I want to thank our three guests because you guys are awesome and I love you guys. I'm glad that you guys were here with us to have this awesome show. I appreciate your opinions and your intellect, your intellectuals, brought in people who are smart, smart people. Memberships, shout out to the 10%ers. We appreciate you guys. Love the fact that you guys support us in this way. I have on my side Arcade 4247, Donnell Brown, Captain Crunch, Neil S, Jeff B Gaming, Percolator 9000, Steve Harlow, East Texas Alex, Franco Tech, John E, Dexflex 27, John the Don, Babe, Dragonheart Yobi, Enrique, Hargi Shanique, Truth Serum, Arodimus, Ramon Terrell, Humi-Wan Kenobi, Gaming Forte, Corey Hale, Stardust Acero, and that guy submitted.
Yeah, man. Shout out to you guys. Really appreciate you supporting us this way. And for myself, it's Gaming Forte. You're already on the channel. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Always having a great time over here. We will see you guys for episode 132 on Slow-Mo's channel next week. It's going to be a good time over there. And for the members over here, we got the homie Gregor Von Doon, Texas Lean, Truth Serum, Big Matt Mo, Ducky, Deflex 27, Dragonheart Yobi, Stardust Acero, Ramon Terrell, Hargi Chani, Brat, Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, Corey Hale, Arodimus, Slow-Mo Backslap, DJ Oris, and that guy Smitty. Once again, appreciate you guys and appreciate all 63 people that showed up to the show today. With that, enjoy your weekend, play some games, and don't worry about what other people say about the platforms you play on. Just if you like it, keep playing on it. Have a good weekend, guys.
Spell Pepsi, Forte.
Pepis.